Yes, yes. What is going on, my PTG world? We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for tuning into the Play the Game podcast. We have the one and only Dave Chaney, who is a next level sports marketer and has been just dominating in that field space. So we're so honored to have him on the show. He's worked with several global brands and really gives us a ton of insightful information on how we can make paintball the best version of itself. So we're super honored to have him on the show. And this show is brought to you by the one and only spectacular Transfuse. Yeah, Transfuse. You guys are amazing. We absolutely love working with these guys. They have been phenomenal, and the product is just on another level. It is a premium rapid hydration multiplier, and it is an immunity fortifying formula that is scientifically designed to replenish you at the cellular level. And it takes your athletic game to the next level when you're using a product like this. One of the cool things about it is they're using all natural ingredients, which I absolutely love. It will not make it into my regiment if it's not good for me. So that was one of the huge make or break factors on this whole thing is, if I'm going to use it, I have to believe in it, and I absolutely believe in Transfuse and what it does. It's amazing. It's like the best of Gatorade, Pedialyte, coconut water, and Emergency all came together to create the Transfuse monster, and they are just crushing it out there. I'm super honored to be working with them, and tons of people are using it. It's used by athletes, festival goers. I even saw on their Instagram they had some firefighters that are using it. God bless those guys out there in California right now. I know the fires are crazy out there. Also first responders, military service, and people that are just trying to recover from the cold or prevent the cold. It's a spectacular product. It has 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C in it, which is 500 milligrams more than an Emergency packet, which is pretty amazing. And it also has 6 milligrams of vitamin B6 to help lower cholesterol, boost brain function, and it aids in helping your body just feel really good. It also has zinc, which is an essential vitamin in regulating immunity, treating the common cold, and it improves brain function and memory. So this product is really doing big things. It is combating dehydration and mental exhaustion, and it's supporting your immune system, which is what we all need right now during these crazy times. And it's really doing spectacular things. Also, if you have a couple too many beers or something like that, it makes for a great hangover remedy, which is pretty funny, but true. If that happens to you, you can take some Transfuse and you'll feel okay, which is pretty cool. It is an amazing product. We would love for you guys to go check it out and see if it's right for you. You can head over to translabs.com. That's translabs.com. If you use code PLAYTHEGAME, you will get 10% off. And here's another cool thing that just came to fruition. If you subscribe to the monthly delivery service of Transfuse, you get 10% off as well. So if you subscribe to the monthly service, you'll get 10% off. And then if you use our code PLAYTHEGAME, you'll get an additional 10% off, which is 20% off, which is huge. So you can get 20% off on Transfuse. Head on over, once again, translabs.com, translabs.com, and get yourself some Transfuse. And it's a great way to support the show. Marcelo and myself, we truly appreciate you guys who have been supporting the show by getting some Transfuse, and we absolutely love you for that. So yeah, thank you Transfuse and everything you guys are doing for not only myself, but the paintball community. Crushing it. This show is also brought to you by G2 Paintball. Amazing paintball athletics company started by Victor Gamboa, and Victor and Rusty Glaze, who is the coach of San Diego Dynasty, have joined forces to take over the world, training paintball players to be the best paintball athletes imaginable. They are training you on how to use these specific moves that we use in paintball and make it like muscle memory for you. So when you go to tournaments, when you go to practice, these things are second nature for you. And it's just like if you're playing pro football, if you're playing, college baseball, if you're playing golf, there's certain movements that you're making in all of these sports. And this is the first time it's ever been done. We have a paintball athletics company that is training you, and they're going to kick your butt. I'm telling you, you're going to be tired after this. It's like a training workout regimen of all the moves that you make in paintball, and also just really cool athletic movements that any athlete should be training on. We also are going to have 6 amazing G2 paintball training programs in the Arizona area. So if you're in the Arizona area, be sure to come out and get involved with those. Even if you're not, make the trip out, get a plane flight, cross over some mountains, take a long drive, and come out and get your butt kicked with G2 Paintball. They're going to really make you a better paintball player, and that's our goal. We want to make paintball the most professional that it can possibly be, and we want to make paintball players go pro, and you can do that by using this paintball training program. It's a paintball athletics company designed to help you become the best paintball athlete imaginable, and we're training to maximize your performance on and off the field. So you're going to be crushing it on the field, and you're also going to feel really good just in your normal everyday life. I know that I use it, Dynasty players use it, and it's pushing paintball players to become the best athlete imaginable and go pro. That's our goal. We want to take players to the next level. Even if you're a divisional player, we want to take you to that next level and really help you understand how to play the game properly and work out in these very specific paintball training athletic movements that you're going to use every time that you play paintball. So if this interests you, head on over to g2paintball.com and get signed up there. The dates that we have here, we're going to Wild West Paintball and we're going to Battle Zone Paintball in Arizona. So if you're in the Arizona area, listen up. And, like I said, if you have to travel, come on out. We will be at Wild West Paintball on August 16th, September 12th, and October 11th. And we will be at Battle Zone Paintball August 30th, September 27th, and October 25th. So get ready for those training programs because they are going to be amazing. We already have people that are signing up, so thank you to everybody who's been signing up. And we just can't wait to keep growing paintball. That's really our mission. We want to make this last an eternity. We want paintball to be here forever. It's an amazing sport for the mind, body, soul. It does great things for the community, and we are so honored to be able to provide this paintball athletics training program through G2. So if that interests you, head on over to g2paintball.com, scroll down to the bottom there, and you can see where you can sign up, and it also has all of the dates there for you. So without further ado, let's get into the episode with Dave Chaney, Rockstar. Can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's get it going.
That was an insane inside move by Marcelo Margot. Great communication.
And the crowd starts chanting Harmon.
Great shot by all the guys. So Tyler Harmon saved that game.
He came out with 2 wins. Marcelo Margot was on fire.
Big man, Dave Chaney. We are so
baby.
incredibly excited to have you on the show, dude. Somebody that I've known for, 4 or 5 years now. We've had tons of amazing conversations about the future of the sport, which is really why we are here today. We want to talk to you about ideas, the way the sport can progress. Someone like you that has a ton of background in sports marketing, over 15 years in that industry. You've worked with some major brands, Under Armour, Red Bull, New Balance. You just offer a really great and unique perspective. And so, man, thank you, dude. We're super excited to have you on.
Dude, beyond humbled for this. So stoked. Thank you, for what you guys are doing right now for the community. In large, the community needs this, but particularly right now during this season, right? So it's just been uplifting, and I've become a huge fan. So just stoked for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're honored to have you on, and that's why Marcelo and myself, we started this. We were like, what are we going to do? We're not playing paintball. We need something like to do. And this kind of feels like we're still playing the game. And so we called it Play the Game, and we're, giving back to the community and connecting with everybody. It's been a beautiful experience.
Well, it feels from our side watching as fans, it feels very organic too. So you guys, somewhere in your souls, you had this calling, to kind of lead the community and lead these topics. So it's been great, and I know you guys are just getting started on it. So.
Long road ahead.
Totally, that's the biggest thing. Is we're just getting started. Tyler and I talk about it. We're like, man, this show right here is our 27th show. We just got started like 3 weeks ago. We're like, man, imagine when we hit the 100 mark. I think that's going to come pretty quick. But then we hit like the 1,000 mark, and it's just. Jeez. Because especially once the season gets back going and events are really happening, we're going to have even more to talk about. A lot of people ask us, they say, is this just temporary? Is it just during quarantine? When the season gets back in full swing, are you guys going to be able to still do this? And now that we've learned how to do everything, The answer is absolutely yes. There's going to be way more to talk about. It's much more seamless now. The learning curve was steep and really grueling. Took a lot of time
sure.
that we might not have had without this with this quarantine and without this time off, if you will. But now that things are in motion, dude, yeah, we're excited. We can't wait for things to really get back going so we can have, even more to talk about. But we're in it for the long haul.
You guys are, and I hope that my hope is once some of the travel bans are lifted, you're able to get out there more. Some of the fruit that you guys have been putting out there comes back, and you see the guys and girls, our sport community at the field come up and engage with you guys about this, because again, I know through social media and there's ways people can kind of talk to you, but the community is really behind this. And again, my hope is that once the in-person stuff comes, that you guys really start to feel the love back that way. Because again, I know all the work that's going into this. That's a lot of love going out. The community is around you guys. We're putting love back in it. So keep it up.
Dude,
Gave me the chills.
Yeah, I gotta say, Dave, it's been pretty crazy. So we've actually had a few events that we've been fortunate to be able to get to, much smaller regional stuff that are still within limits. We had the Pro Tour, which is the one-on-one event from Brandon Short and HK Army. Then we did the summer camp. We did also a Dynasty 20-year anniversary clinic out in Boston. Every single time Tyler and I have gone to the field, it has been remarkable how many people have come up and brought up Play the Game podcast. We talk about it, off the air. Tyler and I talk every single day on the phone. And it's like, man, it's crazy that already so many people have had a response, and seeing the way it's resonating with people is so fulfilling, and I don't mean that in a cheesy way. It's really easy for people that do things to kind of highlight those compliments that they get from it, but it really, really means a lot, like it's cool. People are listening and people are engaged and they're really enjoying it. So yeah, we just hope we can continue to build that.
Oh, we're building it, baby. And it hits you right in the heart, man. When they come up, you're like, God, man, it feels so good. And we love paintball. And this just has been, like you said, Dave, it's been a calling. I've always wanted to get on a microphone. Thought I was going to be a rapper for a minute. Turns out I'm a podcaster. You know what I mean? So
you can still be both, dude. I say we do a little freestyle one time.
There we go.
You and I will just have our own show and we'll do some freestyles. I think that'd be great.
That sounds fun. That sounds
2020.
Good.
Rappers or podcasters, podcasters or rapping.
That's it. That's right.
Yeah, there's no lines in the digital strategy and artistness of it. So
it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day, man.
I love it, man. So I'm pumped.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Dave, obviously we have a ton of stuff to talk to you about in regards to the sport of paintball and how we can really progress. That's the kind of the meat and potatoes of this show. But, you've listened to a few of these. Our listeners know we got to get to the grassroots. How did you get involved in the game of paintball? Because beyond all of the sports marketing and things that you've done to try to put paintball on the map, you also are an avid player. You fall in love with the game. So
just
how did that happen?
One thing I want to let the YouTubers know, we got a sick picture of Dave on my background. So go to the YouTube and check that out. He's out here balling on them.
You're too kind. You're too kind. No, I do have fun with it, and I'll spare your listeners with too much of the backstory. But I think it brings a little context just from an authenticity side. It's important for me. Like I really love over the last, I'd say, the more focused, kind of like purpose-driven I've been in paintball. It's really been over like the last 5 years, and that really it was sparked. We might talk about it later, but it was sparked by, and this is like the most dynasty story ever. But I literally ran into Ryan and Alex at Whole Foods in Orlando during World Cup in maybe
you ran into all of us. We were all there.
Team, exactly. We were all there.
And,
I remember
here, Tyler.
I remember this.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so that's that's how I got started. But
how crazy is that? Hold on, that is just destiny. Like that's so insane. Yeah. We met you just at Whole Foods, and that's what Dynasty does. Like after our practice or our games, we go to Whole Foods, stock up for the night, and we ran into Dave there. It's crazy.
And I was down there for work and for something completely, not for the World Cup particularly that year. And I knew the World Cup was happening. and I was in Orlando. I was like, and I think I was supposed to fly out the next day. I ended up just changing my schedule and staying and just being a fan and
Whoa.
going. I mean, on that, I will say, I would say that probably there's no one else in the last 5 years that I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, that has attended as many NXL events as myself that did not play or have like a significant other that has played. Like I have literally,
that's great.
I have been at so many events the last couple of years, just showing up, supporting however I can, being close to it. You know, the energy and you know, the community of it, it draws me in. But
dude, I love that. That's super great. We love you for that. Yeah.
Man, it's again, and I'm fortunate to work in sports, and you know, there's a saying that says it's a privilege to work in sports, and you know, you kind of take that responsibility on. And I've been to some great sport events, you know, over the years, but I'm like a kid when I go to the NXL events.
Yeah.
Especially,
Me too.
you know, I just am. It's just it's you know, just that little unique piece for myself. So it's great, but yeah, I mean, to your question or point there, Marcel, like to bring some authenticity to it, you know, I was introduced to paintball in probably '97, and I was really fortunate I grew up in a great paintball community, and that really helped. I mean, there's some legends, you know, guys that I still have a ton of respect for, clearly playing and watching. But you know, again, the beauty of social media, I'm able to stay connected with them, and that was in St. Louis, Missouri. So in the mid to late '90s, you know, we were introduced to the game, and it just became our, you know, kind of one of our number one sports, you know, and because of the community around it. And you know what it offered, it just drew us in, and you know, playing on divisional teams, and you know, going to regional events back then. I mean, I played lacrosse in college, but prior to that, you know, really leading up to that, that's when I was able to, you know, travel in with my friends and really live in that full experience. And I tell Ryan this story all the time. One of my most memorable events was the Mardi Gras event in 2003.
Oh my God, that was my first tournament.
Yes, yeah, and it was a very memorable event, like rainy, and I mean, being, you know, 17 or 18 or however old I was, you know, with the paintball crew at Mardi Gras, like those type of cultural events really leave an impression on you.
Absolutely.
So regardless of what you go and do after that, they just have such strong stamps on your personality that. You know, you don't just move past it.
Oh no, that one changed my life too. I was 14 years old. That was the very first pro tournament I played with the Oakland Assassins, and I'm
Mardi Gras?
I'm like 4 foot nothing, right? I'm just a little grasshopper, and I'm trudging up the middle of the field to the X when it had the big X in the middle,
for sure.
And I just remember the water being almost up to my hips. You know, I'm so short, and like there was bunkers floating away. It was insane out there.
Yeah, it was definitely happening, and it was, you know, one of the initial or early debuts of like X ball. You know, playing it like that too. So, you know, again, fortunate to like experience, you know, when World Cup was like 10-man World Cup. You know, before that transition happened, and again, so. It started young, and much like, and this is kind of a common theme I think about like in paintball and the other sports I'm involved in, either like personally or professionally, but they're participant-based sports with a really strong community, right? So those that are involved in there usually have some sort of direct involvement with it. They're rarely just a fan and never have either participated or have a significant other or a kid that has played in that sport. And then being community-based, like I talked about, like I grew up in a really great field called Gateway Paintball, and you know, guys like you know, Brock Jolliffe and Jeff Crouppen, I mean, legends of the game, all came out of that St. Louis crew. Nice. And you know, as a high schooler and middle school, you know, driving up to Chicago to play tournaments at Badlands, and just, I mean, like, there's you know, I'm in my mid-30s now, and there's few things you can remember being a young kid and trying to work through the zipper of that hyperball field up in Chicago was just so impactful in my mind that, again, these are like strong stamps that stay with you and kind of shape and influence you. And you know,
What a legendary field that was, man.
I feel really fortunate,
Man,
and so all that kind of had a really good stamp and impression on me.
You just touched real quick. You just touched on something so crucial, actually, that Tyler and I talk about all the time. To the importance of learning how to succeed on the paintball field teaches you some serious life lessons. Especially like you're talking about that zipper. That is a legendary zipper. It's been in a lot of 10-man videos, things like that. And it's like it's a grueling part of the field. So you have to overcome fear of like getting in there, crawling all the way down and just being okay with it. You have to understand like all sorts of stuff. But this actually is true in all layouts, right? Like when you get a layout and you are learning how to basically come up with a group plan to overcome this layout, these lessons really do transcend the sport of paintball. And there's been fields and layout, which is more recently specific, but layouts that are extremely tough. You just can't figure out how to play the field. You don't like it. But for some reason, as the event goes on, so after having 2 weekends on a layout, don't like it at all, the event starts to happen and you start to like understand the layout better. And you're like, oh man, I'm starting to overcome this. I get it. Like it just, I love, we could have an entire podcast, I believe, about lessons that paintball could teach you that relate to regular life, and just trying to figure out, here's the situation. How do we break it down? And it's a group effort as well. You need teamwork, which I don't care who you are. You need teamwork in life. If no matter who it is.
Now more than ever.
Yeah.
I think our country needs some teamwork.
Yeah, we do.
In a big game.
We got to get it.
Come together.
That's right. Everybody link arms. Let's get a strategy to going, and let's stick together for sure. That's what it's all about.
You're spot on.
Yeah, I know that, paintball has taught me so much about life, just how to, work well with others, communication, obviously, strategy, and really, the biggest thing that paintball could teach anybody is just how to be a good teammate and how, like what we're talking about, how to boost each other and be there for each other, especially when the times are tough, because that's when we need to show that good light side of everything. And it's when the times are tough is what builds you. And that's really what paintball can teach you.
Yeah, I agree. You guys, dude, I'll tell you, I'll put my fan hat on. Mark that down for a future episode. I would love to. You guys should totally dive into that, because there really are some, foundational cornerstones of personality development that this sport can uniquely build. I mean, a lot of sports build that in general, right? But there are some like traits to this sport and this community, I think, that uniquely can help shape some of that. So you're spot on. I love it.
Yeah. Well, we're doing it. It's happening now.
It's happening real time. So.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. And, obviously, it looks like from the picture I'm seeing, you're pretty serious, dude. You look serious in this photo that I have on the background here.
There are definitely years, right? So,
we got to tuck that elbow in a little bit. If I'm being real honest, we got to get that elbow tucked just a time. You've got the Greenspan elbow going on, which is for fashion, not function. You know what I mean?
I think that was maybe before I went to camp, and
that's right.
I should have learned some of that stuff. But hey, again, not to get on a tangent, that's another beautiful thing about this sport, which I didn't actually write it down, but I love that your age can progress along with your progression in the sport, right?
Yeah.
I participate in a lot of sports. Marcel and I were just kind of talking about this. There's different things you do recreationally where the progression just slows down based on your age or your ability or things like that. With this sport, like, man, you can always progress in unique ways as you get older. And I don't mean to take us down that, but that's another really
you're right.
Great aspect about this.
What makes paintball so unique is the fact that literally any human being can play this 100%. And be successful, which is amazing. It doesn't matter. Any human can play this, and you have a chance to go pro. You have a chance to be super successful at paintball. And what you're hitting on there, absolutely, the age has no relevance. I have grandmas, I have moms, dads, the 10-year-old kid, and everything in between, which is so cool about paintball.
It is, and in that progression and what you were just talking about, you can go pro, or you could just make a bunch of really great
Yeah.
friends. And your
Yeah.
experience,
Totally.
I mean, granted, how serious, those are two different stories. I'm not
Totally.
suggesting that by recreationally playing paintball you go pro, but you can equally have a stake in this sport community, regardless of what you want the end use to be, the end outcome to be, right? And that's what's really unique too about it.
Totally.
It's fun.
It's a game that rewards decision making. I could argue more than almost any other sport where, I do think there will be a day that comes where paintball has, in a 5-on-5 game, all 10 people run a 4.4 to 4.740, right? So at that point, when you have every player on the field that is not only a premier athlete, but they're also making the same kind of high level decisions as some of the pros now, it will be more difficult for you to play later into your years at the highest level.
For
right?
sure. For sure.
But we just simply don't have that yet. And so you look at like Ryan Greenspan, one, he's actually more athletic than most people in the sport of paintball. And he's,
right now.
he's 38 years old, but his decision making is second to none. On Sunday, I want him over just about anybody in the league on our team to make the right decisions come Sunday. And decision making is so rewarded in the sport of paintball. The paintball gun is, as they say, the great equalizer, that you can make good decisions and have a good shot, and your actual physical capabilities are not as highlighted as in other sports. So it's great because so many people come together and have a good time, and it also offers an eclectic group, right? You don't have one group that's just a bunch of athletes or a bunch of jocks from the gym or whatever you want to call it, right? It's you can have the older gentleman that likes to go fishing and drink beer on this weekend. You can have the young 13, 14-year-old kid. You can have a group. You can have the lady that's a great athlete that wants to come out and actually is being proven. Some of these girls are dominating.
They're kicking ass.
Of the men. They're crushing. So it's a beautiful game. And I love that you speak on the community of it, right, Dave? Because it's something, again, Tyler and I, we talk about all the time, but the community of paintball is really special. And that's why, anytime I see us start to kind of get a little bit of divide, I'm like, hey, whoa, everybody, look, we're all on the same page here, because paintball is a sport about sacrifice. A lot of people sacrifice time, and it's expensive, and it's not very rewarding if you're looking for a monetary return. It's incredibly rewarding in so many other ways that I don't think you could even put a value on. But people don't get into it for those reasons because they don't know about it until they experience it. And they say, wow, I have these long-lasting friendships and relationships and these experiences that I don't know that anything else offers that. I truly don't. Like the amount of people from a wide variety of backgrounds that I have become friends with because of paintball, where I know that I probably wouldn't have if it weren't for this sport, is it's truly special.
It's magical for sure.
It is 100%. And the barriers, to kind of bundle all that up, all that being the way in which you described it's the sport's ability to take on different athletes, different types, different walks of life. The barrier to entry is fairly low. Granted, there's a financial barrier. Unfortunately, that's with everything. But at the end of the day, in most states and most regions, you can Google a paintball field and find a way to get out there and play.
Totally.
Where that's not the case. And regardless of your geographic, if you're from Dallas, Texas, and you're like aspiring to be a snowboarder, like that's going to be hard, right? Like you're going to have geographic limitations there.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
You can pick up this game at any place in the country, and more and more globally. So those barriers to entry are fewer and fewer.
Dude, that's an amazing way to look at it, because what's funny is you kind of looked at that as a glass half full. I've always looked at, in every conversation that I've been a part of in regard to that is, it's just so much easier for someone to pick up a basketball and go shoot hoops, or grab a football and go to the park with their buddy and, toss the ball. But paintball is kind of a mission to get to a field, and it is easier than some other sports. You're right. Like, think about how popular snowboarding is and skiing, incredibly popular. But there are legitimately areas in this country where you do not have the option unless you travel wide and far to go make it happen. I've never looked at it that way. So I
think that there's more and more sports like that too, right? We default to those North America-based team sports, right? Because they just have mass audiences, and there's market reasons for why those sports have got to where they are. But because of kind of globalization from getting exposure to different sports, you see sports like non-traditional team sports that might be really big at other places in the world, like a rugby or a cricket, right? The world's largest, most populated sport, second largest to global football. But even there, like, say you're a kid and you come across a cricket YouTube video, it's few and far between where you can find a cricket club or a youth cricket club in the U.S. and start to play. Where, again, for most, generally speaking, I think most listeners or those that have interest in paintball, they could probably find a field within 45 minutes of their house.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was pretty fortunate.
Yeah, there's fields, I mean, everywhere now. It's I feel like paintball has more eyes on it and it's getting bigger. I mean, I know it's tough times and we've been through tough times, but people, when you play paintball, it's just something like I haven't stopped in over 20 years, like playing paintball. It's just, I started when I was 11. I'm 31 now and I have not put it down in 20 years. And it's because it's just so good for your body. It's good for your mind. It's fun. You get to connect with people. There's just so many valuable things that you get out of it that I haven't found. And I'm a sports fanatic. I've played every sport you can imagine, extreme, traditional, whatever. And nothing does what paintball does for me. Like, it's just a crazy experience.
I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there for sure.
But paintball's insane. It's a fun sport.
It is. And what my thought was like, and that's why you're one of the best in the world at doing it. But another kind of, not to be cheesy here, but another kind of like glass half full type approach to that. It's also a unique sport where you can, be the Tyler Harmon and play every day all those years, or you can also be like a David Chaney and play for a period of years, and then life comes up and you don't play for a little bit, but you can then come back to it. Like, it doesn't leave you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I think, and I don't go too far off this rant, but this is really important too. Why it's valuable to
rant away, baby.
Invest in this sport, because say a sport, my daughter has come to really love it, and rock climbing, and so she really loves it. And I've been climbing more than I have in years, and it's hard to get those fundamentals like back. Now, granted, with paintball, you leave, there's fundamentals you're going to lose as well, but there's not so much like strength or muscle memory, those type of things you lose. If you invest in the sport of paintball as a family or as an individual, and you say, your financial situation changes or you move to a non-traditional paintball area, over the years can go by and you can come back to paintball, and it's not like, I got to relearn this again. Yeah. It's waiting there for you. Like, that's hey, right. Paintball's always saying, hey, welcome back. Like, and you and your heart like falls right back into it. I mean, there's times because of my schedule and stuff, like I always want to play more. Yeah. But you just can't, right? And so you can always come back to it though.
That's right.
There are so many players that they leave the game for a little bit.
I was going to say that.
It's a running joke. Like, okay, you'll be back. You're like, we'll see you soon. Because it absolutely, again, I think that's partially because the limitations aren't to your body type, right? And to how capable you are. It's a mental game. So you can come back and you can still play chess. You can put the chessboard away for years and you could pull it out. And as long as your fingers can still grab the piece, your mind's there's going to be a few little times where you get tricked and you're like, oh, I forgot about that move. Of course. But you can come back and you could play the game. And I mean, so many pros do it. So many semi-pro players do it. And so many just players in general, that they love the game. Life gets, a hold of them and they don't quite have time to play anymore. Maybe the financial stability. So they pursue a career and then they become well off. They come back and next thing you know, they're playing at the highest level again.
For sure. 100%. And dude, the key is just happiness. Like, you don't have to be pro. You don't have to be this, that, or the other. Whatever makes you happy, you're enjoying the game, play the game, have fun, and, enjoy the experience. And Dave, you've been in the game for a long time. I mean, you started, you're saying in like 97-ish area there.
Absolutely.
So, how did that journey go in the beginning? And then obviously you got into sports marketing. So kind of bring us through those early years and then maybe the transition into how real life happened. And I know I saw on your Instagram, you made a post that you're like, in July, you said ready to come out of the shadows and get to the field more this year. So you're ready to go.
For sure. No, I do want to play. And it's funny, just this past weekend, actually, I was inspired by your conversation with Wolf, and for the first time in well over a decade, I went to my local field, which is a really great field. We moved down here to Georgia a couple years ago for the outdoor, for the recreation. It was a family choice just to be outdoors more. And we have a great field by a very personal, great field owner, Mario at Nitro Paintball. And I went there, man, and I just showed up and just soaked it all in. And like from the beginning, it sounds so corny, but I just like waited in line for my paint, went down to the staging area, and was just like a rec player for the first time and played a full Saturday in the woods. And it was really fulfilling.
I wish I could do that. I wish I could just go stand in line, and because people would be like, "That's Tyler," and they're like,
"I'm like, perform," and like,
I wish I could do that.
No, I mean, it was full experience, like getting smoked by the church group that was there, like some 13-year-olds that have never played, and they were still just but that's the fun of it. But
I love that too, man. That's so cool.
It's fun. So that was me. That is just again experiencing the game in a lot of new lights and with some new, I don't want to say maturity, but just with a little bit more holistic view of the game and all the ways to participate in it. But going back to your point, Marcel, I'm just going to be a little cheesy. It's not a birthday party, but it was like a church group.
There we go.
It was in say 96 or 97. And, paintball was just the action sport world in the 90s. It was a great culture to grow up. It was a really good time. Just because everything was so new and so like raw, and you'd get like VHS, 411, VHS skateboard tapes, and you would just live like, I was just a grom, and I loved. It's funny because lacrosse, people want to think about this, but what I loved as a grom was either being at the paintball store, the skate shop, or the bike shop.
Yes.
It's all these community-based, like that's where the other groms were hanging out. The guys that were a little bit older that just would shred or rip or just ball, they were there, and it was that central space. And that's where I went and found my kind of path professionally, was really the world of community-based sports and that intimate sporting goods store experience.
Wow.
And so we had a great store like that in the 90s at Gateway Paintball.
Yeah.
And it was a legend. Eric Kilgore ran and operated that store, and we were just the groms hanging out there and, played on a variety of teams. And, we're all over the Midwest playing paintball, and had a really authentic experience. I mean, you talk about going up to Badlands, and, we would just as much go down south. There used to be a facility. It's a beautiful facility now from what I've seen online, but Kicking Paintballs is down in southwest Missouri.
Yeah.
And they had an indoor field that was way different, way back in the day, and it was like concrete floors, and like dust, like that kind of like sawdust, that it would hurt more to slide into your bunker than actually get shot, bad lighting. But all those things are so impressionable,
Which is a good point. I know we talked about that too. We'll get into that a little bit later, but presentation of these paintball fields is so important, dude.
So that is going to be a major tipping point. I definitely want to dive into that. But having that experience in the Midwest, I didn't participate in the sport, during college. Came, in and out through the 20s, my 20s, and then when I moved to Maryland, really had a resurgence because that photo there, was the home field of Revo, and Henry Sense and all those guys there really just welcomed me, and that was the thing. Like, moved around a little bit for work and would find these fields, just like Nitro here in Georgia, or PAP up there in Maryland, and they just instantly you're welcomed in, right? And I was really fortunate.
The best community, like no matter where you go in paintball, people are there to welcome you with open arms. They're like, "Hey, come on down, brother, sister, let's have some fun." Yeah,
and I want to, anybody listening that's like kind of teeter-tottering on playing or not, just step into it, and then you're riding your bike, and you won't even, it's like riding a bike. You won't even.
That's it.
So, that has been my experience, but I've never not stayed engaged, right? I mean, I think the commercial side of paintball really expanded in that probably 2005 to 2008 to 10 era. I think that we all talk about that was a time where I wasn't on the field really at that time. Just life happenings and stuff, but I never was not engaged with the sport just from a media side and stuff. But
I absolutely love that you have followed your heart ever since, you were a Grom and you were in that atmosphere, and you were like, yo, I love this. I love sports. I love all sports. And you love that energy, and you followed that, and you made a career out of it and have been very successful at it. And it's just an homage to following your heart and following your dreams. And you're a perfect example of that. And you're in the industry you want to be in and still able to play ball and have fun in sports, which is amazing.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not always the most traditional path to get there.
Yeah.
It's you find different ways, but
that's right.
You definitely make it happen.
Totally.
And yeah, it definitely came from a lot of love. I mean, we would, funny stories of like in the early days of like 2000, in the early 2000s, I should say. The paintball culture, you would wear it. Skate apparel was so popular, right? You'd wear your shorties t-shirt or your hookups t-shirt or birdhouse, and you would just as equally wear your JT shirt. I remember there were times in high school where like JT probably had some like question. Now at my age now, all right, probably questionable to wear that to school. But there were some like these paintball shirts that have different sayings, and you would just rock it. It was a lifestyle that
for sure,
which still 100% exists.
I remember these shirts that you're talking about.
Yeah, they're like,
pretty crazy stuff. Yeah.
And, your guys' partner and, Marky, I think he does really one of the best in the world of still continuing that lifestyle, that blur, you wear it to the field and then on the field and then back off the field, right? And as sports brands, that's what you aspire to. You want the athletes to not have a hard boundary where the field boundaries are. You want them to continue with your brand on and off the field. They do a great job of that, but that was just, again, so much part of the culture. And, having Faceful magazines hit, like, it sounds so cheesy, but I'd have, like, the Faceful magazine, like, behind the math book. And I would just be reading, like, about Ryan and all the guys, like, on the couch at San Diego State. And I just, like, wide-eyed, like, dude, this is it. They're so rad.
Hey, we were there, too.
A lot of those articles, and all that. And,
absolutely.
In the culture of just living and the impressions that all the DVDs have left. But, I say all that because it's important because, I've been fortunate to now see other sports with different lenses. And I'm always thinking, and then particularly these last couple of years since, I've connected with you guys and just where my mind's been going, how do I take some of these best practices and start to like, how can I now give back to my community that again had so much positive influence on me, young, and I still think I'm young, but as I'm transitioning, how do I give back? And that's where I'm at now, and that's why I'm always pushing for these conversations. And I started working particularly on kind of like this. Not a mantra, but really start to put some of these thoughts down of like, I need to start taking some action. And there's we can talk about later. I mean, there's one small way that I've officially started to you got to think about your sphere of influence, right? And like within my sphere of influence, what can I start to do to contribute back now? It's that time for me.
Well,
so
that's why we have this here, baby. We're gonna dig deep right now, and
Let's do it.
That's what it's all about. Yeah.
And so when I toss this like concept up of just really what I want to talk to you guys about off air, and we're always kind of having these conversations. I'm always having this conversation. You guys had Cena on. Cena and I, we've worked together now for a couple of years. We're always having this conversation. Guys at Chris Adai and Steve and Rabikoff, and there's guys out there where I'm just trying to. They have so much knowledge in this space that I'm trying to be a sponge and take some of their knowledge, right? And then see a little bit of what I see happening in other sports, learn, and just honestly be quiet and listen and get the knowledge of what's happening in this sport. And I'm trying to fuse this together to put some productive thought and then some credible like action plan.
I love that.
Not that I'm like, not that I'm taking that on to be like, oh, I'm the hero. Here's everything.
Yeah,
absolutely not. But if I can start to form some thoughts about it, then I can segment off and say, hey, maybe I can do this here in my own community. And then the conversation happens, and maybe someone else gets in the conversation. They might have resources where they can contribute to a little bit of this. And
that's what it's all about.
It's more constructive, right? And we start going down a certain path.
And that's what we need. We need these conversations together to bounce off of each other, and for me to be a point of relativity on the topic so that we can formulate good ideas, formulate good pathways, and accomplish these goals that obviously we all have set out in this game. We love paintball, right? We love this sport. We never want to see it go anywhere. We want to have a powerful industry for a long time. And I want my child, if he decides to be able to step into paintball and have a life in it if he wants to. And that's why it's good that thank God we have you on this show so we can bounce these ideas around. And I want you to kind of give us a look inside the lens that you've been so fortunate to look through in other sports, and really, let us see through your eyes of what it's been like as a sports marketer with global brands. I mean, you've worked with some of the biggest names in the world.
Thank you. And I feel really fortunate for that. And again, with those brands, I will say, man, I probably just was that sponge again and absorbed from them, and really great leadership of those brands as much as I could contribute, really, way more, brought more in. Particularly for me, it's the sport of lacrosse that has been my primary responsibility in my career. But it's great. There's actually some really strong parallels with lacrosse and paintball. One, I already kind of talked about it briefly, but it's a participant really based sport. Right, so you're just now kind of starting to get some fans, but at the end of the day, it's really just those who have played, and it's a community based, right? And special. It's called special. The world of specialty sporting goods, and like lacrosse shops operate a lot like paintball shops or specialty sporting good dealers that focus on a certain community. So there's a lot of parallels. But when we talk about the lens, what I've seen and been able to be involved in is in 2003, lacrosse became the fastest growing team sport in the U.S. and was on that rise really for the last decade, and it's still arguably right up there in like a top 3. Track and field has really emerged recently. At the NCAA level, women's lacrosse is still right up there as far as participation, or as far as growth numbers. So we've seen. So I got to see really from when lacrosse hit its tipping point, and then I got to get in the industry at the right time, and then just kind of ride that wave, And at the time, and I would say this to anyone listening, maybe aspiring to be in the paintball industry, at the time I saw that as lacrosse was hitting this tipping point, there was like kind of 2 types of individuals that were working in lacrosse. And it was the personality of like the lacrosse coach that needed some supplemental income and found a way to either like do some sales on the side or, work in the industry in some way, but it really wasn't their primary focus. They're really a lacrosse coach, and they're finding ways to supplement income. And then the other was like the really accomplished lacrosse player that's kind of out of college that probably like not ready to go to like, Wall Street or like some big job, and they just kind of are floating by in the industry. So no one really came in with an approach to say like, let's apply some like just great business principles, and how do we apply that within this space, right? And I think that's really applicable to paintball in some way. Again, to those like aspiring to be in the industry, how do you take best business practices and then bring them within the space? And so that creates a lot of opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so from there, I just had a kind of variety of different sporting good retailers, right? So the industry's really made up of you have the retail side and the wholesale side and the brand side. Although direct business to customer is increasing, you still really have that model. And that's the model you have in paintball as well too. So I worked on the retail side for many years, and I had a really great break. The largest hockey retailer in North America, it's called Total Hockey, and they decided to get into the lacrosse business. So
No way. Wow.
and so I came on and got to launch a brand called Total Lacrosse, which we became the fastest growing lacrosse retailer in the country at a
There we
really
go.
great time when the largest team sport, fastest growing team sport in the country was like, hockey stick type growth. We built brick and mortars, in some key markets like, DC and St. Louis, Chicago, and we did that really fast and had good success. And from there, the opportunity then went into Under Armour, and just by the network. And that's another thing I would, as this conversation revolves around sports marketing and paintball and people getting involved, think about your network. And it's so valuable. And I've really just through my network I've just kind of found different opportunities and gone with.
Yeah.
And it's got me. And so, again, tying that story back to paintball. So my time at, at a UA, another brand, it was, finding opportunities to stay engaged with the paintball community. Or when I was at, another brand, Red Bull, is like, if anyone was at, maybe that was like 2018 Atlantic City, there was some Red Bull activation there.
Yeah.
I think for the 2018 season, I had branded product in all the pro pits, and so it's just wherever I'm going, I'm trying to find, resources that complement each other, right, and support and give back. So it's been super important to me.
Absolutely. And you've been on a journey. It's been a journey, man.
Yeah, and I mean, also when you brought those Red Bull coolers to paintball, as little of a, optics that it might have been, I feel like it actually made the whole league look better, right? When you have those kind of big name outside sponsors in a professional pit, even just having those little coolers, just having the brand there, that does so much for the sport. It really does, because there's, and you understand this, I'm sure, more than anybody. Sports marketing is exactly what you do. You have a little kid that walks by, right? And he sees a big name company like Red Bull in the pit with the professional players. That could be all that player needs to spark, oh my God, I want, and we don't want to sell false hopes and dreams. Like, oh, maybe I'm going to get some big Red Bull sponsorship. No, but it just legitimizes the sport a little bit more, and you've done so much actually, and all the companies that you have worked with in getting them involved in the sport, which is, again, just a major reason why Tyler and I both have so much respect for you. And we appreciate you because we're here for paintball. We want paintball to be seen as what it should be seen as, a real professional sport. And you've brought more professionalism to the sport than the upper 90.
Arguably anybody.
Yeah. And it's
thank you, dude. That's too nice. And you guys are super nice, but it's just
before you get started, dude. No, not a small bit. You have contributed immensely. You have brought so much legitimacy to the sport. I know when I strapped on my cleats that you sent over to me and I took photos with those and people saw me rocking UA, they said, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, it gave a huge boost to the community. Same with various other products that you've blessed us with, man. It adds so much depth to what I'm providing to the community, Marcelo and other pro athletes, and legitimizing what we're doing for sure.
I like my
those UA ones are out the door now, though.
Yeah, I like my New Balance ones a little more now. Yeah, exactly.
No, but
much
for
better
sure.
fit for the fit. Nah,
yes.
I'm just joking.
No, New Balance, dude. The New Balance, the ones with like the teeth on the side, are insane. They have like all those teeth. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's been another really fortunate. Like, again, you got to play with the resources you have, and that was another thing I saw, that lacrosse cleat was just designed really in about 2000. Between 2004 and 2006 was the first time our sport had a lacrosse specific cleat, and it was identified as more flexible than a football cleat, but more durable than a soccer cleat. So it fell right in a really unique kind of like trait silo, I would say. But it is great for the sport of paintball. So
for sure.
I have this product that was like, man, this product is real. This is just good product. The end use of the product doesn't have to be made specifically for paintball, for it to help paintball athletes. And that's what we have to offer. And honestly, the cleat we have right now, where we have 5 pro teams. This season has been clearly what it is for the reasons of COVID, but even a little bit of last year, as I transitioned into this new role, we had a handful of pro teams. We have 5+ pro teams using the product, but not only just using it, but really accelerating in it and enjoying it. And so, again, finding the resources we have and putting it to best practice goes back to what's in my sphere of influence that I can help control and help give back to.
Well, the New Balance cleat's one of the best paintball cleats that we've ever worn. Like, I'm telling you, these teeth on the side really do something for the lateral movement and the different movements that are like really unique to paintball. It's really amazing.
Actually, so those New Balance cleats that you've been sending us, and actually, did you get a chance to send that other pair?
You have a couple coming right now. I think we're at a doorbell. I think FedEx is dropping them off right now. Any day now. They are in the mail.
Dude, I need some love. I need some cleats, baby.
They are the most comfortable cleat that I've ever worn. I mean that. So I have really bad bunions, which sucks. So I don't have great feet, and finding the right size for me is really difficult. That's why I've kind of been a pain in the ass, Dave, with like, it's like 10, maybe 10.5. I don't like, it has to be perfect. The Under Armour ones, always thought that like the fashion was great, but they did not fit very well, and no disrespect.
He was always crying about his feet.
But I have these gnarly bunions. Like they're really bad and they hurt. The New Balance cleats are the most comfortable. And like that rubbery blue film that's on the inside that kind of grips to the sock and holds everything in place. I love them. And so I think the way those teeth also, because I used to wear track cleats before I moved to like soccer cleats, anything like that. Track cleats pretty much get you amazing traction on whatever you're going to run on. You just can't really heel stop. And so I would always wear track cleats, because if you're in the snake and you're starting to push off with your toes or something, it's great to have track cleats. Or if you're down in a low position. The New Balance cleats with those teeth, they kind of have that, dude. I love 100%. Them. They're amazing, bro.
What's the name of that cleat? So that our listeners.
It's the Freeze. It's the New Balance Freeze cleat. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, and it is, and it does. There's it's a lateral cleat on the side of it that is really unique. It's made for athletes that need to stop and then move laterally, like left, right. So specifically in the sport of lacrosse, where particularly like attackmen and defensemen that operate behind the goal a lot of times, they have north-south speed that then they need to stop and then go east-west with. And that a cleat really allows for that. And that's like, one, thank you for the compliment. I mean, it's a really incredible brand.
Totally.
Yes.
U.S. owned, privately owned brand. So
love that.
And you guys got
a lot of pride. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's big.
The champ.
New Balance is on the rise, man. New Balance for so long was like the old man's brand, and now they're sick, dude. I even hit you up. There's like a bunch of, dude, there's some sick shorts, board shorts, workout shorts, all sorts of stuff that New Balance is on the rise for sure. I'm pumped.
Yeah, and it's a brand that does things the right way ethically too. But
love that.
Big.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. So it's just has helped put me in a place where I have some resources, and it's like, hey, how do we engage? How do we give back to this community? How do we build this thing? And then ultimately, that's what has led to. I was talking to you guys, like putting some of these constructive notes down and thinking about it, and even stepping back and like that give back, or like what's my ultimate goal here? And I had like the top line on the whiteboard. It's like points for growth, or like participation, and I don't really think actually where I'm finding my kind of niche to get involved and help drive this thing with the collective group of everybody. It's maybe not so much just like growth or really even on the marketing side. I think there's a lot of discussions. I know you guys talked a little bit with Maddie about it. Like a lot of discussions on what can be done. Like, and clearly you talked to Sino a lot about it. Like broadcast and marketing and awareness side. I think that's great. But really, I can tell you firsthand, and for this to come full circle, what we saw in lacrosse never, it's just now emerging a little bit at the pro level. There's a little bit of pro lacrosse. Major League Lacrosse has been around since 2000, but that wasn't moving the needle for lacrosse. It's 100% the grassroots participation. And that's where my mind is around this sport. And it's really about it's really about creating sustainable participation, right? So it's about getting people to come into the sport, regulating their experience, and having it be an experience that they then want to now identify with. I am part of this. And then how do they, what is their progression through the sport, and how does that maintain? And then, still, regardless of whatever social media, the best is word of mouth marketing and word of mouth awareness, and like great experiences. People love to talk about that. Right now, they're able to talk about it through social media, and they do. But where you really see like the tipping point, the popularity of things happen is when that kind of word of mouth excitement starts to happen within smaller communities. And so that's where, again, I'm really approaching this not so much from, hey, marketing, like how do we just get more impressions, or how do we create more views, or how do we get this to a larger audience? For me, it's actually bringing it back down on a more like geo-targeted or a micro level, and saying, how do we build the pyramid, the base of the pyramid first? And that other stuff is like the fun stuff. That's like the creative, that's the spin money stuff. The stuff I'm talking about is honestly more of the make money stuff. It's more of like participation, sustainability, users that are coming, over and over again. The spin money stuff's fun. Everybody everybody likes to kind of create shows and do things like that. It's really great and super important. Don't get me wrong. It's not this or that. It all has to happen. And maybe sometimes the bottom of the pyramid stuff doesn't get talked about as much. And that's where that's where my heart is kind of taking me towards.
Love that.
Yeah. So I couldn't agree more, because user experience at the base level is so important, right? And that's why, Dave, you and I briefly talked about it off the air as well. And I know Tyler and I have had this conversation too, but it's so important for players to show up to a paintball field and have a good experience. Because if we have players that show up to a paintball field, they have a good experience, they want to keep playing, then through word of mouth, just on the larger scale, the numbers just continue to grow. But if players show up, they have a bad experience, a kid at 11 years old gets shot, hates it, never wants to play again, which you hear a lot of as well. That's why I love the parks that offer the 50 cal. So kids, a certain age and under can have that option to play, so they can fall in love with the art of the game. Cops and robbers, right? That's really what it is. You're running down playing tag with a paintball marker. There's so many ways that you can navigate the user experience. Creating some sort of system, and this is, again, something Tyler and I have talked about, with the name of our company is Play the Game Paintball LLC. That is it, right? And we want to transcend well beyond just this podcast. We want to create some sort of structure to where we can promote this to businesses and schools and your everyday people to come out to a paintball park and play based on having that paintball park having the type of guidelines that we like to follow. Like, okay, this is the experience we want you to provide them, right? So how can you do that on a grand scale? And what would that look like to you? Because I think you're kind of talking about some similar ideas there.
You're exactly right. So, and look, this is I'm in your guys' world. So tell me where you want to take this. I've thrown down, and I've whittled this down a couple different ways. And as of where I'm at right now, I have like a top 5 kind of what action items, and I think it falls exactly in line with what you're talking about here, Marcel. And like what you're getting at, and what I see the answer, I couldn't agree more. It's the user experience has to be regulated. And that's probably the conversation when I'm at NXL events and I'm talking to paintball industry guys. It's like that's the one thing I talk about the most, is regulating that experience. So I put that. I title that. I think, from my point of view and what I've seen, U.S. Lacrosse do, USA Hockey, and U.S. Soccer Organization, which are national governing bodies of the sport, they take on that responsibility, right? And so that's like one of my 5 things here is at the end, which out of the top 5, honestly, I think I put this at 5 being the hardest thing to probably really get off the ground. I think there are 4 other steps prior to that that I like to talk about with and get feedback from people and get their point of view that I think are more achievable. But I think the end goal has to be a national governing body. And too often, in our sport community, I think from what I've seen, I want to get your guys' feedback. The users in our space, participants, they look to the NXL as the governing body or the responsibility to grow paintball. And they are doing an amazing job of running a business, providing a league for people to play.
Exactly, yeah.
Completely separate than having the responsibility of the growth of paintball. Now, they're not two completely different things. Yeah. But if I'm, Tom Cole and I'm whiteboarding, I'm not putting on my whiteboard the responsibility to grow paintball participation. I got to make a sustainable financial league, number one, and provide the best, environment for the pro athlete down to anyone. That's a whole nother world.
Totally. They tried to do that with the WPBO, World Paintball Organization.
I'm a little familiar with that, yeah.
And they tried to, they wanted to have, regulation, field sizes, this whole thing, but it didn't go into the user experience. That was more geared towards regulating how tournament paintball is played.
That's right. Yeah.
So a little different.
There's nothing more important than that experience, man. And we've got to make sure we nurture that. Otherwise, you said, people are going to fall out.
Which is crazy, like a body to say how tournament paintball is played. But in reality, in theory, right, you have the NXL, and if they have their rules of how they want tournament paintball to be played, who's to say another league doesn't just come along and make their own rules? You're participating within that league, that silo. And those are how you're experiencing a game within that format. But the national governing body transcends way beyond rules. There's a couple common things like field standards, right? Yeah. So if I were to Google, if I'm a parent and I need to go to a paintball field, and I Google and I have 4 fields that I can choose from, and one field is U.S. paintball certified, I'm going to know that they probably went through a standard process, and my child is probably going to have the best experience and at least the most safe experience given the certification that they reach, right? So they have field standards, player development is a big thing. What is, again, not regardless of rules, but a player from year 1 to year 3 of their paintball experience, what's the paintball IQ that they should have? They should probably know how to fill a tank properly. They should probably know, regulation around chin straps. There's probably a thing of a body of information that as you're progressing through your paintball experience, there's a player development model that says this is what you should have, this is what you should have. Right now, it's great. I think BKI is doing that right on the private side. That's the club, the club sport version, right? You have institutional team lacrosse, but then you also have club lacrosse, and that's kind of with the BK, which is beautiful. I mean, thank goodness that our sport has that type of content creation. But player development, another thing governing bodies do, which can really help as we kind of ramp up participation and increase fields, is also often those governing bodies work as legal entities that help do a couple things legally. One being create supplemental income. So if my child is registered to the U.S. Lacrosse Organization or U.S. Soccer, USA Hockey, they have supplemental insurance,
Yeah.
They have supplemental insurance that says if they get hurt while participating in this sport and they're a member of U.S. Lacrosse, we cover a percentage of their medical costs.
How do they become a member of U.S. Lacrosse?
You go and sign up. I think right now the yearly, and I'll tell you, if you're a U where it starts right now, probably like a U9 or a fiddlesticks player, all the way up through college, it's the league that you sign up for mandates that you're a member of U.S. Lacrosse. So I'll go onto the team website. All right, I signed up my son or daughter for the team. Oh, I have to put in my U.S. Lacrosse membership for me to register. So then I go to uslacrosse.org. I pay my $45. My child receives a monthly news, magazine. I get updates what the governing body is doing, and I have that supplemental insurance. If players have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that a one-time fee of $45? Is it a yearly fee?
It's annual. It's annual, yeah.
That's
But
reasonable, very reasonable to be fair.
yeah, it's once a year. I'll tell you again, I'm most familiar where my direct involvement through the years has been through US Lacrosse, but US Lacrosse is about 10 years behind USA Hockey, which is the exact same model,
Okay.
and US Soccer. So they all kind of follow the same model. And so what that does when you have this supplemental insurance, it now reduces the cost for fields. Because right now, fields are taking on all that liability, right? You're assuming that a player, they sign a waiver, I get that. But you're also assuming that that person, that player that signs a waiver has their own insurance, right? And then the insurance company that is covering the field has to weigh that risk that, what if this participant signs up, they sign a waiver, what if something funky happens? They don't have insurance themselves, and now, they're suing the field, worst case scenario, right, to cover all that cost. That's where a governing body can take a lot of that liability off, and it would help financially fields in a lot of ways. So, again, a governing body really does that, and that's what a governing body does for these other team sports and how it helps them with clubs.
Dave, would it only help these fields in worst case scenario if something happened, or does it reduce their monthly cost because of insurances they already have to have? And sorry if you kind of already answered that. I want to try to be a little clear and follow you on this.
For the individual, as I understand it, and I actually used my lacrosse supplemental income in college. My freshman year of college, I had a tibula-fibula break, and it was gross. But because it was during I was a registered member, it was a sanctioned event. A lot of that was covered, right? So to your question, Marcel, for the individual, it covers the cost if something were to happen. To the field, a field can then say, look, if this is all hypothetical, right? But a field could then go to an insurance provider and say, look, I want to start this business. These are the participants. One, they sign a waiver. Two, participants that play here more than 2 times a year are required to have a U.S. Paintball register number, and that gives them supplemental insurance. So then the insurance company that is going to give a policy to the field, they don't have to take on as much risk. So the field will benefit by saying, okay, instead of your cost, we got to judge all this risk, and your cost is $100,000 a year for us to insure your company. Now, if I know that 70% of the participants going to your field, or 50%, have a supplemental income, or I keep saying income, supplemental insurance to cover in case something were to happen, they were only charging you $75,000 to insure the field.
Now, how easy is that to set up? Like, if you were to put this in motion, how easy is that to put together?
The governing body?
Yeah.
What do we got to do?
I think I thought about this, right? And actually, I want to answer that. Let me clear. So I think their responsibility is to create field standards, build a player development model, create the supplemental insurance, and work with the national insurance company on that. And then that job, too, is also to create a history log. Right? Popular topic you guys have been having with your guests is like Hall of Fame. And that, like the NXL, they're a league, and they should, from my point of view, I think, they should have a Hall of Fame. But that, to me, in my mind, that's like the NXL's Hall of Fame or the NXL's award. But a governing body should transcend. What if I'm going to make it up, where there's an amazing player that never plays in that league, right? Like, where does that person fall? So a governing body maybe doesn't even own a Hall of Fame, but they do own the history of, like, Hall of Fame records. As you guys are all taking stats now, like, where's a non-bias, non-profit holding all this information, right? And that's what a governing body does. And then going back to your question about where do you start on that? Honestly, I think where you start on it is we talked about this at the very beginning of our conversation. You're a sponge. You find a way right now. We can't physically do it. We find a way to knock on the door of U.S. Lacrosse and USA Hockey and get a Zoom call with them and say, look, we're a sport which is amazing. I've dug around. I'm seeing some of the numbers, the total market size. Look, we're a sport that has this, and in the next 5 to 7 years, we're forming a nonprofit governing body, what would you tell us to do first? And that's exactly what I would do. I would go to one of those three that have already done it and are living it day in and day out, right? And just keep knocking on that door till you get a little bit of time on their calendar. And from there, that's where it goes. But I think it's, as long as you have, okay, what's the ethos, what's the purpose of this governing body, and you have those objectives in mind, then the execution of it, it's been done before. We don't have to completely rewrite it. There's these sports all over that have already done it. We just got to replicate it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Exactly. So, that's a big one. But again, in this kind of like a top 5, I think it's one of the hardest.
Totally. I don't disagree with you at all on that. I just, I look at paintball players and like how many paintball players would be upset about having to pay this extra fee, to have some sort of insurance. And you know how paintball players are. Not that that's makes them, right by any means, but
I agree.
That's obviously the argument on the other side of that too.
Look, and it's not mandatory. I mean, you can still play paintball without it, right? You could find some place to play lacrosse without it. Now, if the tournament you are wanting to play in, if they would mandate, you have to have a U.S. paintball number, and you don't want that, don't play the tournament. Play a different tournament.
It's like an ID card. It's like an ID card.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It really is. And I would think as that governing body, matures, that whole, which I'm sure the guys on that APPA side, they don't want to hear this, but I'm sure there's some sort of fusion there or shared responsibility. There's some sort of collaboration. I clearly haven't gone down that path of mapping that out, but there's probably some sort of collaboration. But to your point, I mean, I don't foresee it ever being like a mandatory thing that you have to be part of this. If you're not part of it, okay, you're not getting the supplemental insurance. So if anything does happen to you, you don't have that. You're not getting the the monthly newsletter or the T-shirt or whatever. You're not part of the organization, and that's fine.
The values outweigh. I mean, you're getting so much from the organization. Having a governing body, I think the values outweigh. That $40 or whatever is it's tremendous value that you get from that.
Right.
Yeah. What if and maybe I'm like not following completely, but like I have full health insurance. So if I get injured somewhere, I'm going to be covered. Why would I need an extra bit of insurance in that sense?
You're gonna have, and I don't want to get over my skis here. I can just tell you really from firsthand experience, and also from my work with U.S. Lacrosse, what it does. I think from again my understanding, it reduces the risk of the provider, right? So it reduces the liability of those that are hosting, whether it be the tournament or the club. But there is, your insurance is covering up to a certain amount. And usually there's a lot of like post stuff. Like it's been a really long time, but there's a lot of like post-op stuff. So rehab and things like that were covered under my experience. Yeah. But I would say again, if I recall, like even maybe our surgery copays, from when I had to work with it, I think all that was maybe that what my primary didn't cover, my sport specific insurance covered. But if this interests anybody that is listening, please. So it's uslacrosse.org. That's just the one off the top of my head, or USA Hockey, or US Rugby is another great example that does this as well. Please Google any of those, and if you work in the world of insurance, or you're a young man or woman that is working on insurance and having a career in that, and you love paintball, look, there's probably a way that let's start thinking out of the box. Can we help our field owners reduce some cost and, reduce that liability, and then reduce some costs and maybe give some more money back to the field owners to invest more in their field. So just like, maybe if we could all start thinking that way.
Yeah, then they could have like a sweet entrance, all that money that they would save on the, they could reinvest it. Yeah,
exactly. That's
Jumbotron.
If Jumbotron, we could make it cheaper on these fields, and they could invest this money back into the user experience, any avenue in which we can do so, I think that's important to talk about for sure. 100%. Because insurance is not cheap for these fields. That's a fact. You know, people don't understand
No.
everything that it takes to run a paintball field. It's tough. You have to meet certain regulations. Location's a big deal. Insurance policies. It's a lot to run a paintball field. And I think there's an illusion that even some of the more successful fields, there's an illusion that the owners are multimillionaires. And that's not the case.
Mhm.
Many of them are not barely getting by. They're comfortable, but you know, if there's a small hiccup or fields get shut down for a couple of weeks, a lot of them aren't doing well. Like, you know, they're not as big as people perceive them to be. So, you know,
As
at
we've
times
seen with COVID, like,
right.
yeah.
Oh, for
Exactly.
sure.
So it's hard to fault them at times. It's hard to fault them at times for not investing $15,000 in a beautiful new entrance and you know, like a nice little staging area to where parents can sit there and enjoy a nice lunch while they watch their kids play. You know, all of this kind of stuff that would make the game grow in the long run. It takes investment, it takes money. And so I do love what you're talking about, because it seems like it's a viable way to reduce field cost, and then you just have to ensure they do the right thing with the money they're saving, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And remember too, that is like a finger on the hand of what a governing body does as
Of
well,
course,
right?
of
And so it's one benefit of many
Yeah.
that they can provide. And again, I for sure haven't mapped out all the different scenarios, but it is a topic of conversation that I have continually had over the last couple of years of importance. That being said, within these again top 5 that I've kind of wrote down, I think it's the hardest. It really is. I mean, that is the one that it goes beyond, you know, maybe some of these other things. You kind of, you know, will is a powerful thing. You can will some of these things to happen. This probably goes a little bit beyond that, to where you're going to need, you know, we're going to need professionals in a variety of different ways come out of the woodworks and like
Yes.
and apply,
Yeah,
and we
for
need a
sure.
collective group to get behind it. But unless we're having these conversations now, we don't know if there's someone on the East Coast, Midwest, South, wherever, that maybe they're having the same thought too, right? And now it's like, okay, what can we all bring to the table to
We got to
increase
speak
our
it,
sphere
Totally,
of
dude.
influence?
put it into the universe, and watch the magic happen. It's, you know, that's the power of thought, the power of creative word. You know, that's what it's all
Absolutely.
about.
Absolutely. So
From someone that is so experienced in sports marketing as yourself, what do you think is one of the more important things in regards to the user experience? It's your first time playing paintball. You show up to a paintball field. How should that experience look?
yeah, that's great. I haven't got quite that granular in my thought, but I mean, I do think about that. I mean, ultimately, the experience has to be a place of safety and welcomeness. I think, you know, to give a shout out to our local field here at Nitro Paintball in Georgia. Like I told you, you know, Saturday I was there, and to describe that user experience, you know, the owner of the field is personally welcoming and diving into conversation with every first-time player, the regulars he's saying hello to. Like, he's there, he's got his goggles on. You know, he's out there, he's helping people with, you know, whatever they need help with, right? So boom, right off the start, that's a personable experience. But, you know, that's a really finite, really detailed example of making somebody feel welcome. Not everybody can do that, right? On a more broad stroke, I think where that starts is getting endemic brands in the paintball world involved more at the field level, and helping those brands, having those brands have more involvement at the player's experience. And so that's kind of like one point I talk about is this idea of, you know, endemic and non-endemic sponsors, right? So endemic sponsors are those brands that earn their money directly from the sport. So Field One, HK, right? Dye. Like, these are paintball brands that are investing back in the sport, that directly earn their money. Non-endemic brands are like Coca-Cola, New Balance, right? These are brands that are not specifically, they want to use the audience, engage, I don't want to say use, they want to engage with the audience that is within the paintball community, but they are not directly making their revenue from a paintball product, right?
Yeah.
So getting those endemic brands that have a stake in, if I'm a paintball brand, I want to immediately have engagement and interact with the player that a ride for the first time at age 15 because he's going to associate that first time with that field branded with HK or DI or whatever, and then he's going to come back and go a couple more times. Then when he goes to buy his first marker, he has that brand impression from his first time, right? So your question was, how do you like regulate or improve that experience? Like, it's fun and sexy, and the cool marketing is like the big national events. And I'm not saying it's that or this, right? We got to play in the gray area a lot. But if those endemic brands that want to stay with the consumer from their first experience all the way up to their, Division I or semi-pro tournaments, I hope that they can, which all budgets are tight, and maybe it's not a financial thing, but how can they find a way to get engaged at that field level? Because I think those brands do bring some professionalism, and they can bring some regulatory experience at the field level. I hope that answers your question. I know it's kind of roundabout, but what I'm saying is getting those global brands, endemic brands, and placing them at the very grassroots level.
For sure. I love that. And
like
we actually talked
Red
about
Bull in the professional pits.
There we go.
Like stuff like that. Yeah, dude.
And we also
and that's kind of aspirational. I'm saying, like, how does and pick the brand. Let's use Field One. Put in any brand. It doesn't matter. But how does that brand find a way to create a grassroots branding platform, right? So it's standard stuff. So it's a package they roll out to fields where they might send a pro and then like some tents, some banners, and they might send some like guidelines on like, hey, this is best practices on how to run a field from our point of view. Do you want to be a partner with us? If you're a partner, this is what you get. We'll do some training with you. You can have all this branding, right? And so they're now working with the fields to create this experience for the player. So it's actually taking it from the aspirational pro pit level and bringing it down into the grassroots level. And I think that's kind of the difference.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. I agree. And I think also to couple with that, you have that aspect of it, but then it's also up to every single paintball player that shows up to the field to make sure that everyone is protected, everyone is in the right environment. And, I hear, don't get me wrong, when I play pro paintball, I'm pretty brutal. I'm not there to play nice, and it's going down. So, but that's different than when I go to a local field and I'm with the community. I'm nurturing. I'm the friendliest, kindest person there because I want to make sure everybody has a great experience. But, you have a lot of these players that want paintball to be violent. They want all this, but that's not what is going to help us nurture this game into the future. There's a time and a place for that, because I get crazy too, and I want to be a little bit wild when I'm on that pro field. And it's like I said, I'm not there to play nice. I'm there to win tournaments. But it's all about the timing and the right type of branding, like you're talking about, to nurture the game and grow it in the right direction for the first time player, for people who are going to continue to play this for many years.
Absolutely, and it's working to their environment. I mean, every sport's like that, right? I mean, see the surgence in mountain biking, particularly this year because of the social distance requirement. Mountain biking's through the roof. There's a shortage of bikes, but the world of Red Bull Rampage is not the world of everybody right now that is buying a bike and going and riding a trail for the first time. There's two different experiences, and that's what you just talked about. Again, when you're wearing the hat of world champion and you're out there being the best, that's a different hat than you're wearing of being, an ambassador for the sport. And thank you for that. Thank you for taking your time, and you have had all the accomplishments, and yet you're still humble enough to do that. That goes really far.
Well, thank you. It means the most to us. That's what fills our cup up the fullest, is that kind of stuff, is, connecting with the community and giving back in any way we can. We love paintball. Like I said, we want to see this go through the roof for many, many, many years to come.
And it shows. Yeah. It definitely shows. So,
I love you.
Marcelo, going back to that, and I kind of went down on this path, so it's a good time to just knock it out here. But on this kind of like top 5 list I've been working on, it's the world of thinking about how we apply our endemic and then non-endemic sponsorship money. Yeah. So again, I think it's great, and I totally understand the need for like all the global paintball brands, right, show up at national events, and there's some opportunity there for them to sell directly to the customer. So there's like financial return there. I'm not saying they pull out of that, right? The NXL needs them. People, sometimes that's the only place people can get new goggles or something. So I'm not saying that, but those non-endemic brands could shift a lot of their interest in dollars to the local fields. Again, as a brand, you're interacting now with the player immediately, and then that's where your greatest brand impressions happen. What's really interesting too is, like now, a person has to have a brand impression 7 times, compared to in 2005, that same brand impression had 1 time, and now today they have to have it 7 times. So we're getting so much imagery and brands and distractions that you need to see a brand 7 times over to have the same impact as just the 1 time back in 2005 already, right?
That's crazy.
So if the endemic brands can start, my suggestion, that's all this is. I get so pumped up about this, but at all times I do want to step down and say, look, these global paintball brands have done amazing things over the last 20 years. So this isn't me saying they should be doing it this way. It's just a perspective. I love all the conversations about it. And
it's a very
really
important perspective. I want to not undermine your position though, Dave, because yes, a lot of these brands have done an amazing job, but they lack greatly in a professional sports marketer. Not many of these companies have somebody with your expertise, and that's actually the facts, and which is why we are so excited to have you on here. So please don't hold back, man, and please be excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, but again, I see what a lot of the brand leaders in this space have done with some resources and challenges they have, and they've done some really creative and great things as well.
Absolutely.
But again, my suggestion, or from what I'm seeing right now, if those brands can invest more at that regional grassroots level, now you're engaging with the consumer at the very beginning. You have the opportunity to better sculpt and control the environment in partnership with the field. So now you have a better partner, right? Yeah. And you're investing in that consumer from their entrance into the space, into their maturity into it, right? And so you have a lot of dollars. And then where, on the opposite, where, you guys talk about growth and
real quick, Dave, just before we move on. So instead of letting these fields, letting's not the right word, but instead of having these fields just be open to the public, in one weekend, 500 players could come through. It's not regulated what they see, what they do. Having your brand involved in that captures them from square one is what you're saying, right? Which then, I totally agree with that, man. That's actually...
And that's what we do. That's what my job is, really, right? I mean, I work with sport clubs around the country, the largest sport clubs and the fastest growing sport. And I'm fortunate, too. I work in a sport where, out of team sports, we have one of the highest social, economical, groups, which at times, and that's a whole nother discussion, I think that holds the sport of lacrosse back a lot of times, but that has also provided some revenue to work with. And the space of club sports is really big business, right? Club sports is big. And so that's what we do as brands we work with all these club sports, right? That is by definition grassroots sports marketing. So there's brand marketing, which, like everyone's seeing the swoosh commercial right now on social media, right? There's, I think the brand I'm at, now I think we're a global leader, very authentic. Those are the brand messaging that you say throughout the world, this is who we are. There's then, so brand marketing is just big, broad stroke. There's sports marketing, which works with pro teams. And then there's grassroots sports marketing. Grassroots sports marketing, that's where you're really talking about the participants, the core of those playing the sport. And you're working with the clubs. And that, again, if we can invest more, which I know there's only so many dollars out there, and I totally get that, but there's creative ways to do it. If we can invest more as brands at the field level, it improves the experience, and the brands are going to get a better return, right? So, which is different than just aspirational marketing, where aspirational marketing, you got to have some of it. I'm not saying it's one or the other, but aspirational marketing is taking a poster of yourself and throwing it up right when I walk into, the main gallery at an NXL event and seeing a big poster of you guys, that's aspirational. Man, I want to be in that product to aspire to look like that, right?
Yeah.
The reverse is spending that money not on the aspirational side, but spending that money on, hey, we're going to work on I'm a brand, I'm Paintball brand A, we're going to work on a player experience model. And Field, if you want to be our partner, we'll come to you. We'll do 2 trainings throughout the year. We'll send some of our pro guys to do an event there. We'll provide you with branding. And these are just the requirements we would like you to go by. And you're building a partnership there. And you're also building an opportunity to have conversation with all those church groups and birthday groups and everybody passing through. Your brand has just opened itself up from going from aspirational to grassroots engagement.
Yeah, it's funny,
Amazing.
Dave. So we travel around and do these clinics all the time, right? And we don't have anything in place that is a very structured version of what you're speaking to, but it is of high importance. And anytime I go to a clinic, myself and the field owner, I know Tyler as well, Ryan, we have these conversations, right? And there are fields that, just like you said, I love that you touched on, you're building a partnership. Now, granted, this is coming from my personal brand. It's not coming from the brand of one of the large companies that might have way more influence than just myself or just Ryan or just Tyler, or just one of the individual players. But building that partnership is something that I know I personally have tried to do over and over throughout the years, and try to kind of consult of how to make the user experience better and everything that you're speaking to. But I see a major importance in having a kind of system-wide like regulation of this in a more professional way. I mean, honestly, you're sparking a lot of ideas, and we might have to put some sort of play the game situation together, because
I was thinking about that too.
Perfect,
and totally.
Exactly. I mean, you guys can do it as your brand, right?
Yeah,
the
totally.
PTG tour, right? And you say, okay, annually I want to find 15 fields across the country, and these are the standards. And I don't know if you're a field that you want to be on this tour, you need to hold to these standards. Mm-hmm. But look, it's if we're going to try to make this an annual thing, this is what we're going to do. We believe we can bring these type of impressions and this type of engagement back to your facility. The dialogue can continue throughout the year. Have fields apply. And and say, okay, and look, these top 15 fields, they're part of our tour this year. And if they withhold their agreement, they're part of the tour next year. Now you're building that with them. And so that's one way a brand, right, is now engaging with the fields. So that's on the endemic side. And then just briefly on the non-endemic side, really what you want then is where the large volume, the large traffic, right, the World Cup events, these NXL events, that's where you want to get the non-endemic brands of the Marriotts, the Enterprise Rent-A-Cars, right? Because they don't need to necessarily create large or deep, intimate conversations with paintball consumers from their beginning of play all the way through. They just need that quick hit of look what we can sell you, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And we have a community of people that, they travel X amount. They're here for 4 days. You can get all these impressions. They're between this age, and you sell that non-endemic sponsorship at that level at those tournaments, because that's the type of engagement you want to hit there. And so, thinking about where those dollars get spent, it's not necessarily we need more dollars. It's just where do we put those dollars is super important. So the difference of, again, endemic sponsorship dollars and focus, I think, is better often at the grassroots level. Not saying it's either or, but I would tip more there, the non-endemic to the more national, aspirational top line.
I have a quick question about lacrosse, Dave. As you say, fastest growing sport, definitely on the rise. Why do you say it's because participation, right? So what we have always talked about on this show, what I have always preached is we need to do a better job of creating superheroes, right? Like, people want to play basketball to be like LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. You have these superheroes that you, as a young kid, want to turn into. So you want to play that sport to become that. I can't personally name one lacrosse player. However, that doesn't mean much at all. It just means that it's not a sport that I follow, right? So within the sport, was it was it that maybe some players started to become these high level athletes, and so younger players aspire to be that? Or is it truly that people just got into it because they see lacrosse? I don't even know. How do people get into lacrosse, right? Like, how
Well,
do
there's
people,
great programs.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
yeah.
great question, right? I mean, there is the aspirational piece, but I mean, to that point, I mean, what I would argue is, um, you don't start playing basketball because you want to be LeBron James. You play basketball, you participate in basketball because most likely you're you know, young man or woman and you need to run around, or your parents are finding an activity for you, or you're going with a group of friends. Then you fall in love with the sport and the involvement of it, and then you see there's something that happens to where then you begin to aspire, and then you learn that person, right? But
absolutely.
your point of entry to the sport is not at a participation level. We're not talking about fans, right? Because there could be someone that's never played basketball, saw a top 10 of LeBron James, like, wow, that's amazing, I'm going to tune into the NBA. That's different. We're talking about, going back to Grassroots, we're talking about the participation, right?
Yep.
So what's the barrier? What's the entry point for them to play the game? And then once they're in,
then you hook them with the superhero.
Exactly, and you hand the baton off in a way, right? You hand that off to then that's that next part of marketing. It's a different tier. You don't want to hit them right away with like, look, there's two best in the world right here, right? Like, look and learn about these guys. We want to have that ready for them, but we got to get them hooked first.
They got to go enjoy the game first on their.
They do, 100%.
And lacrosse has great programs that lacrosse is in schools, and lacrosse is, is much more easily attainable than paintball.
Right. Totally. And that was the tipping point, though. It wasn't always like that, because we saw a point where lacrosse participation really skyrocketed. Yeah. And it was, again, kind of some of the things we just talked about the national governing body needs.
Yeah.
The growing pains, though, is lack of coaching, right? And for other than non-traditional areas being like upstate New York, Long Island, Baltimore, it's a first-generation sport. So the IQ of the sport had to grow in households. So that was one barrier, lack of coaches and lack of fields, right? So there's barriers to get there. Marcel, going back real quick to your point of like, right now, there are definitely aspirational professionals out there. There's two professional leagues. They're both doing a really great job, and there's some amazing athletes and individuals who I'm fortunate to know really well in both of them. But for the longest time, and still to today, college is king in the sport of lacrosse. So what's aspirational is a player, not so much a player wants to be like this pro player in the sport of lacrosse. A player wants to go and play lacrosse at Syracuse, or a player wants to go play lacrosse at Virginia or Notre Dame. So college is king in lacrosse, and the aspiration is getting to that NCAA Final Four weekend, right? So I think you could find the aspirations and the stories in a lot of different ways. And I think with this sport community, and ours is definitely within the individuals and the stories and the geographical relevances and some geographical histories. There's a lot of different fun things, but it's a process. Again, I think like that part of it is still super important. You can't have one without the other. But that like marketing aspirational piece, that's where you hand the baton off, and then it's the second strategy.
Well, it actually speaks so much to the importance of what you're saying about that second strategy. They actually it seems that they have to go hand in hand, right? You need something. Sure. You need something in place to get people to play paintball for the first time, whatever that is, whether you're marketing businesses that go out for company outings, you're marketing young kids to go out for birthday parties, or to get a collective group out for some kind of summer camp, whatever it is, you need that. But then at every single field, every place where they are marketing the first time player, there also needs to be at that same place the marketing for what that next level is. And what you're saying, that's that branding. Like, there's so many fields that I go to and teach clinics. If I were to just go there as a new player, I wouldn't even understand that professional paintball is a thing. I would have no idea. From looking around, I would say, oh, okay, this is a fun thing you go do on the weekends. We get to play around in the woods, run around, shoot paintball guns. That's it. Right. I would never, even the tournament fields, right, where maybe they have an Eclipse banner or a Field 1 banner, HK Army, that's not enough. at every field where you're also marketing the first time players, you also have to have the branding of professional paintball, because then it's
Sure.
okay. So they get there, then they get hooked from playing, and then boom, now they have the battalion's handed off. Right now it's like, oh my God, there's superstars that play this game. I could attain to be that. So it's really
For sure.
a long progression there.
It completely is, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why brands need to invest there, and then have the strategy for the player to entry to maturity.
That makes
and that
sense.
is that.
Totally.
And but that's a constant reinvestment, right? And because I think what we see a lot of times too, you'll go to a field, you'll see some of that brand marketing, like just beautiful full length, whether it be poster action shots, you get a spot inspired by it. But I'm going to be a little critical. They're usually like 5 or 7 or 8 years old. They're dated. It's a cycle, right? So like when brands and fields can partner and know it's a true partnership and there's some sustainability behind it, then as I'm a brand, I'm calling that field up and I'm saying, you have to, here's the brand package and here's the expiration date. You got to take that branding down in 24 months because we don't want to be represented like that. Or there might be a player in that gear that they're no longer under contract for me. One, that's probably illegal to still have that up in some way. But two, like maybe I'm a brand, I don't want that athlete representing me anymore. Right?
We just went to a 10-man tournament 2 weekends ago out there in Boston, and there was a picture of Ryan Greenspan in Eclipse gear from like 2010. I was like, dude, this is super old. This is what you're marketing. It's like, wow.
Yeah. And it's super valuable that we've got to have that. Yeah. We were actually talking with Ryan Brand about that on the show. The importance of that. They roll up and they see a poster of, an individual who makes them aspire to want to have greatness in the sport, and you got to hook them and then drive it all the way home with that.
Yeah. But it doesn't just, it can to a few, right? But what we're talking about is, again, going back, building the bottom of the pyramid. It doesn't occur by just happenstance. That what we're talking about, and that comes with a strategy of having a vision for like where is this partnership? How is our brand going to engage? And what's the KPI? Like what is also our return on that? We can't just give money towards this. What's our return on that in 3 years and 5 years? Right? I mean, coming into all this with a 3YP or a 5YP like is a must have. Because brands can't just keep dumping. There has to be a return.
Of course.
And we need that to happen. So.
Yeah, got to have the money to pay the bills, baby.
Absolutely. And, I think there was a comment made during the discussion about like, fields and, how much they make. Like, at the end of the day, I want every field, I want it to be, dude, if paintball field ownership was the most profitable business to be in, that's the best thing for all of us.
Totally.
Because everybody wants, dude, the money, is not the driver, but the money and resources creates opportunity. And the more doors that we can keep open, the more we're going to have people involved here. It definitely matters.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
let's keep going through your list though. Like it sounds like I love the list you got, and then we got questions.
So we got two off. So the national governing body, I think that's probably one of the hardest right here. Talking and thinking about how we invest with endemic and non-endemic sponsorship. Mm-hmm. I think this is ultimately, this next one here is probably the most important to all this, and it's the need for data, right? We need to start capturing who is playing, and that's the most important thing. Is if we need more than anything, we need to understand the ages. We need to understand the social economical demographic of the participant. We need to understand how much. First, we need to define what a core participant is. Like, so how do we define a core participant? They're going to the field how many times a year? Once they hit that core participant definition, how much are they spending in the industry, right? We need to have a dollar amount because that is going to help us build the projections of what we can spend, right? And then also we need to understand the entrance age of players, average age, how we define core participants, and then the last thing is understanding the churn rate, which this was really important to lacrosse. The churn rate of a sport is those that have dropped out of the sport. So we see lacrosse growth, and this is in lacrosse big time. We see people come into the sport and play, and like numbers are huge. But if you look at the backside of that, there's a lot of kids that are dropping off, right? And so if we can understand why all those players are dropping off, we've already hooked them. They've already picked up a stick, right? In paintball, they've already come to the field. So what was it? Their experience? Was it too costly? We can identify why they then left, because the easiest catch is the one that we already have in the boat, right? Like, let's not release them back and try to catch them again. We got to identify what that churn rate is. How many people are coming to our sport and then leaving within, first or second time?
Yeah. More often than not, it's the experience. And, I'm totally okay speaking open about this. And I never want to talk badly about paintball as a community, but paintball field owners need to do a better job. Bottom line, because I see paintball field owners across the country that don't take care of their facility the way they need to, and they provide very low quality paint because it helps their bottom line, which I understand. But at the same time, look, if people can't show up to a field and have paint that goes through their guns, and this is also on the manufacturer as well. The market has driven these companies to be forced, in quotes, I'm going to say forced, to produce a much lower quality paintball, right? For the rental users. That's what it's called. It's called rental paint. Oh yeah, it shoots good. It won't break in your gun, but it shoots. That's not fun. That's not a fun experience. I know when I started playing paintball back in 1999, and Tyler, I'm sure you could attest to this, Dave, you as well, the worst paint there was still shot straight. Like, it still worked. Yeah. It's still, and in paintball, you are shooting at a target. So you want to be able to shoot a paintball and hit your target. So to me, that's one of the biggest ones, because paint now has gotten, honestly, it's worse than I've ever seen it. And this is my biggest gripe with the industry leaders, is that we produce this. I know that it's cheaper. I get it. So it's more affordable. So you could make that argument that maybe you're capturing more people because it's affordable for their first time, but you're not retaining people because people are not having a good experience, because you go, you see a target, you shoot at it, you don't even hit it. And then you get shot with something that kind of hurts and you go, that was terrible.
That was frustrating. But right.
If you can go to a target range, forget even playing paintball, you go to a field and you go to the target range and you're just like having fun, and it's like golf. I could go right now and I could play golf all day long and every shot is terrible. I get one shot that is straight and where I intended it to go, and I'm hooked, and I want to keep going. And it's paintball is no different. You want to be able to hit what you're shooting at. So to me, paint control, and that really starts from the top bottom. Like, field owners shouldn't even have the opportunity to demand such low quality paint. Paint should be something that all players have a good experience with. And then the visible stuff, right? When you show up to a field, it should be appealing. You shouldn't feel like you are in a broken down car mechanic shop that is also a barn and also a broken down bar, right? You just shouldn't. Like, there needs to be a user experience that, people go and visually they say, oh, this is nice. This is really cool. I have an outdoor feel. I have, in Boston, Tyler, we were just out there. Have you ever been to Anthony's Field in Boston, Dave?
Yeah. Boston I have. I brought a group from the office there. Our global headquarters is just down the road. And I brought a group there, and I got some first-time players out there. Nice. We used his indoor facility, and incredible host. Can't say enough good stuff about it.
Totally. So the indoor field is amazing. Yeah, it's a beautiful facility. It's nice, but their outdoor field is equally as appealing, but it's gorgeous, right? Like, as you're driving down, you feel like you're going into nature. You feel like you're going to have a great experience. I think all of these things are so important. We have to 100%. Take a little bit of a stand on it. And I'm sorry if I got a little passionate and a little crazy on the paint, but that bothers me so much, because I know when I take friends out for the first time, which I've done quite a bit, and they shoot paint that's not very good, and it's no matter what company, all the companies are trying to be able to provide a product at the same price point as their competitors, right? That's what it comes down to. And unfortunately, if you compromise the price of a ball, the quality of the paintball changes dramatically. So the experience isn't great for them. They're like, this isn't fun. I know I could hit that if I'm shooting a real gun. I'll just go shoot a real gun, or I'll throw something at it. It's easier.
Yeah, I agree. I think with paint specifically, that could potentially get fixed with economy of scale, right? And then competition, right? So if some of these topics that we're talking about and the topics you've talked with, Maddie and everybody that you're having on, if these start to implement right and this growth becomes larger and there's higher demand, right, the cost we would think of quality paintballs then would come down. They wouldn't have to jeopardize, right? So they're kind of like little, they're attached to one. They're market forces that are attached to one another. So hopefully, that does get fixed by
it's like you eat yourself, it's like, I'm going to make it cheaper so I can maximize my profits. But, oh, wait, in turn, less people are playing because of this. But, okay, what if more people are playing because you're spending more money? Then in turn, it does more. It's
right. You're spot on.
There's nothing better than hitting a player with a quality paintball. When I was a kid, shooting Hellfire, shooting these premium paintballs is what hooked me. Dude, oh my gosh, when you're shooting straight as an arrow and just inking everything you hit, that's what hooks you right there.
Yes,
absolutely.
You're spot on.
Yeah.
And so again, so we were talking about like getting participation data. Like I think that's really, and then that led into the discussion back to the field.
Right.
But it's all linear. Like it's all tied into one another. So then if fields have that experience, right, and this better experience and people are more engaged, now fields can start reaching out and sending surveys to their participants, and participant that is involved and they're coming back and they're joining their experience, they're going to participate in this survey. And now we start to get that information. And I would say, the two largest, body of audiences right now, from my point of view, I think are probably Go Sports and
Play the Game podcast.
Yeah, you guys and the NXL, and the league and the NXL, and so sorry, just clearing something off my computer. And so if those two groups, the NXL and like Go Sports, they start sending surveys out, and we get an idea of this consumer, that is the most valuable thing for now. Now we just went back to the other point of non-endemic sponsors, right? If I can be armed with understanding the demographic, the age range, how much they're spending per year, how much they're traveling, I can build a portfolio that says, all right, look, this is how many participants we have between the ages of 18 to 24. This group travels, we know, 6 times a year, and they have, $15,000 of expendable income that they like to sell, that they can use. I can then take that and say, okay, what brands does that consumer base fall to? And then now I'm not necessarily selling paintball. I'm selling that data. I'm selling the consumer.
Right. Exactly.
And I don't even have to. I can go and knock on the door of XYZ company. And I mean, this is hypothetical, but in theory, I don't even have to say the word paintball. I can say I have a demographic of, $140 million size market industry that has X amount of participants that are all going to be a captive audience, and I can provide you this inventory of, 125,000 impressions over a course of 4 days in Florida. Do you have a marketing initiative in Florida that you are wanting to spend money on that speaks to this demo? Here it is. And then maybe after they sign the check, and what are they doing? They're playing paintball. Oh, okay, that's great. That's cool.
Yeah.
But that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Dave, what's the best way for us to keep this kind of data? Do we need to implement electronic systems, or can this be done through the typical forms that are filled out at a paintball field?
Yeah, I mean, it could start tomorrow by the NXL sending a survey monkey to everybody that's registered for an event in the last 5 years.
Hold on. It can,
and they do. I've gotten surveys from Camille, and like they have the capacity to do.
100% have the capacity.
Well, hold on. Say that again, though, Dave. What do we need the NXL to do?
I mean, it's a list of
survey monkey.
Yeah, right. We sit down and we define what's the most important thing to sell.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And now here's the thin line. People are gonna be like, don't sell my personal information. It has nothing to do with the individual. We're taking like super top line information. No one knows John Smith was at this event. They know that an 18 to 35-year-old with median household income of this was at the event, right? And we're not selling personal data here. We're not selling someone's email address.
Of course.
Right? We're selling the demographic.
Right, of course.
This is the most important thing possible we have to database this, man. We have to have this information in order
100%.
to have something to present, you know?
No, but so
But right now, there's no.
back to what you said. Sorry, Dave. I only
No,
asked because, like, I'm trying to write stuff down throughout this as well because I really want to take action after this podcast. Because again, dude, we have you on for a reason, and the reason is we think that you can help the future of paintball grow. And so I'm trying to make sure I take notes and we put into action some of the things that we discuss. Right. So
That's awesome.
my question is, how do we do that? And you mentioned something about the NXL. We have great contacts with the NXL, and I'm sure they would be totally on board with stuff. But what are some of the things that we can do to make sure this data is collected better?
Yeah, I think having the first thing is having a vision for the end use of the data. Like, okay, we collect, like that's a problem with, every tech company. There's so much data out there right now, but how do you process it, right? So it's really fine tuning. What are the greatest assets that paintball has collectively to sell to these non-endemics, right? I think it's the demographic. I think it's that it's people that have participation-based sports. So these people clearly show that they want to spend their money on their experience and not on ownership stuff, right? So they're experience-based people. Wow, I would call Airbnb, hotels.com. Like, I have the exact consumer you want. I have someone that is willing to spend all their expendable income on their passion of their sport, and they need a hotel 8 times a year. Hotels.com, you want this person. Absolutely. And so defining what you're going to do with the data and like how is it most valuable, I think is where it starts, and just as simple as forming the questions and start sending that out.
But you said something kind of specific. I'm not trying to pin you down. I swear.
Oh, it was
about the NXL. Like what that seemed like a first big step. The NXL. What could they send out? You said something along the
survey. The survey.
They had a survey, right?
I mean, that's the open form. I mean, they can do that at no cost right now, right? Because they have everybody's email address that have played in an event, and so they can send it out, and you put a call to action on there, right? A call to action like you're getting how many emails a day already, but if you get the one email that says, "Hey, fill out this 10 questionnaire survey," you're automatically be entered to win a new Field 1 marker, or you're automatically entered to win a new, HK Army goggle or something from one of these guys.
Tyler and I
sit there on my phone, and I'm going to answer the 10 questions and be like, okay.
Tyler and I will put up jerseys for that. So question on that. Once that survey's filled out, where do you put this so that it's in the world wide web of data? I know that's a stupid question,
dude.
Valuable.
You don't want to put it out there. Right? So the league has it. So now the league has it, and that's now their most valuable asset. So they're gonna get direct revenue from the registration, but now they have a consumer base that they can identify and sell to non-endemic sponsors, and that's how you're gonna get the Marriotts of the world and the Deltas of the world involved. Is you're gonna tell a story of who you have at your event. You're going to tell a story of what that demographic at your event wants to spend their money on.
Yes.
And then you're going to give the opportunity to say, Delta Airlines, do you want to be in front of this consumer? And this is the inventory you're getting, which is signage or whatever it is.
So, it's more valuable for each company that's doing it. I guess what I was getting to is and what I thought maybe you were alluding to is if every company in paintball could have this database, right? Of this is your demographic. This is what our paintball players want to purchase. These are their habits. Then you could take that to an outside sponsor and say, look, we have X amount of people, but everyone would have to work together with those numbers. You know what I mean?
They will. And so you just opened up a great conversation. So those are two different things. So in the sports industry, there's what's called the SIA, and it's the sports industry. And I'm blanking on this. Google it, please, if you're out there. And
Association, Sports Industry Association. Is that it?
I'm just
Probably is.
guessing because you said A. I'm
Probably
guessing.
is. And so it's a yearly report that we pay for as, industry brands that so this is a group that then goes and gets all that information from all these brands and puts it in a report. And then you can buy that report, and that report will tell you that. It will tell you that general information. So right now I can, and if I want to see last year's report, we could Google and I can tell you the exact amount of the number of participants and by age out of every major team sport in the U.S. as of last year, and the demographics, male to female. U.S. Lacrosse. So then this goes back to the national governing body responsibility. U.S. Lacrosse puts out their annual survey, so it shows by state how many U.S. Lacrosse members there are. It shows by state the breakdown between ages, gender, all that information. So that's public knowledge. So that's one thing. So we're talking about kind of two different things, right? So getting the data to like market and sell and bring in non-endemic brands to help grow this thing, that's one piece. Then you have who the participation base is, and on like kind of the nonprofit side, that all the brands could easily pitch in and collectively have like a shared doc that shows you what the size of the audience is. Like that was the first thing 5 years ago. I could tell you the first time I met Tom Cole personally and Steve Babikoff. I asked them, and I think they talked to Bart a little bit about it. Like my first question is, what's the total market size of paintball? And I'll tell you, it crushes. Like they have a general number, right? And so when we think of market size, it's how much money if we sold every piece of paintball equipment, paint, registrate all the money that's in the market within 1 year. What's the most right now we can make? Ballpark, different people I talk around the industry, and if I'm way off here, somebody in the industry, please correct me and give me the correct number. I think we ballpark at that as like $400 million globally, right? So that's if everything was sold all in 1 year. That's massive. I'll tell you right now, the sport of lacrosse, fastest growing sport in the U.S., globally, it's $125 million a year. So that means if my company sold every piece of lacrosse equipment to every player in the entire world, the most we could have total revenue is $125 million. In paintball, it's 4 times that. So the market size is like, there's a lot there.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think the A for SIA is analyst or something like that.
I think you're right. Yeah. Did you pull that up? That sounds right.
Ty Googled it. Good shit, Ty.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing, man.
So
you're
that
right.
information's out there, but we don't. And I think if you look in the SIA report, paintball, it's defined like recreationally, and it is included in that, but it's super, super top line. We need to take that model, and we need some of that information. We need some of that information once we can understand our audience, and then so also we can bring in some outside dollars.
Totally.
It does 2 things.
Absolutely, man. It's pivotal. We got to have that. Yeah. And
absolutely.
These thoughts that we're sending out into the universe are huge, man. We got to start databasing this so that we can, grow a strong community and have something to work with and to be able to leverage. We got to be able to leverage this thing. Yeah.
Because there's years of participants, and it's a bigger audience. It's a more enticing audience. Too often, I think we're trying to sell the sport of paintball itself to other brands where and I don't want to say sell. Like I'm not trying to create sell out, but I'm trying to create more revenue from greater opportunity. And what we're selling is the community and the audience that we have to say, put your brand in front of this audience.
Yeah.
It's so important.
And like you said, we don't even have to say paintball. It's just once you have the numbers and you have that database of information, it's just like, here you go. This is the facts. Here's what you get. Now let's work. Let's do some collaboration.
Completely agree.
Yeah, man.
Amazing. So that's 3 things. I want to take you guys through these last 2 thoughts and just get your thoughts.
Yeah. I love it, dude. And thank you so much, dude. We are so honored to have you on Play the Game podcast, sharing this stuff with us, dude. Thank you.
No, this is my release valve. I'm having these conversations with everybody. I'm clearly I've got all this bottled up. I'm trying to do my job on a regular basis. In the back of my head, I'm thinking like, what are we gonna do with paintball? I'm thinking that.
I love it. And this is going to be heard by somebody that needs to hear this. And we are 2 of the people that need to hear this because, we're going to do everything that we can do to obviously, like Marcella said, we're not just here to listen to this. We're here to we're here to put into action and create a new reality for paintball. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, man.
Dude, that's too good. So I'll roll right into this kind of number 4 point, and it's a call to innovators in the industry. So I think about this a lot. And innovators in the industry doesn't necessarily just mean like equipment, but rethinking events. I mean, geez, there's so much to be said about Tim, and you want to give all the respect there, but like that's an innovator of the industry,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
He rethought an event that then was sending this on a whole new trajectory that had all this excitement, right? And like, man, there's just so much lost there. But like innovators in industry thinking about how does every event have to look like an NXL event or a regional side of that, right? Like, I know I'm not the first one thinking of this. You guys have talked about it, but like, what about an event where you do a woods game and an airball game, right? Just thinking about that.
And no disrespect to the NXL, but it kind of looks like a carnival to me. I think
because you start to fall in that format, and I mean it's also a comfort. It's a comforting space, and we're all familiar with that. But like, when I say innovators in the industry,
I gotta interject, dude. I think the NXL has done an amazing job as far as the visual appearance to its viewers. Like, Dave, were you at World Cup 19? This last one we just had?
Yeah.
Dude, amazing event. And Ty, we've talked about it. You've boasted the NXL.
Not the venue, but the field. The field itself is carnival-y to me. The colors, the whole way they do it.
No. All
Yeah.
I'm saying is I
the
feel
venues are amazing.
Just not just the venue though, like the companies in the venue. It has that, and Tyler, we've talked about it. It has that old school feel. Music's playing. We have the beer garden. We have like people are having a good time, and it is kind of like a carnival too at the same time,
And
like,
I love carnivals. Don't get me
totally.
wrong.
No, I wasn't trying to undermine what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, I think that the NXL has finally gotten back to a point to where they're presenting something, and this goes back to what I was saying, Dave, about creating superheroes, right? So if you have these events where you have over 5,000 players and only 20 players at that event are going to be superheroes amongst the different divisions and all the way through the professional ranks, like maybe 20 players going to become made superheroes. This is where it's happening. That's where these moments are being made. That's where these lifelong ideological, like, oh, I idolize that player because I saw Tyler Harmon at World Cup pull off that insane move when I was sitting in the grandstands. And then there was like the music in the background. We were walking through the grandstands. Like that makes an appearance. I know if I was 12 years old walking through the 2019 World Cup.
Oh yeah.
And I got to meet Tyler Harmon, I would be like, I want to be a professional paintball player. Are you kidding me? That's exactly what I want to do. They're not in some cow pasture off 10 miles in the woods. They're at a really sweet venue. There's girls serving beers in like the beer garden, which, look, I'm not misogynistic or anything, but what man doesn't like beautiful women that are serving beers? And then like there's a big event, there's good music, there's people having a good time. I mean, come on, like it creates these superheroes. And so as a kid,
I agree.
Yeah. As a kid, I would have been like, oh, because of the NXL, I'm like, oh, I want to be that. I want to be that.
Bro,
for sure.
And 2019 World Cup, I was 34, and I went there to sit in the stands to have that experience. And you're talking to the audience, dude, that is me. And I mean, to your point, Tyler, like, it could be kind of circus. I mean, I say like, okay, kind of agreeing with, but dude, what they are doing. I mean, you start with a place of utmost respect, and I am someone firsthand that I go out of my way to sit and to be in that VIP tent area and watch you guys play for hours. So clearly they're doing great stuff. So it comes from already like starting super high. Aesthetically, that's definitely a whole conversation that
I think I just the field colors really that was pretty much it for me.
Innovators of industry, though, like just people rethinking about events or products or even organizations. And so like that's where I talk about sphere of influence. So, one thing I feel like I can start to influence is creating a platform for how people register and start to play paintball. So,
Yeah.
now it's official, the licensing from the state has come in, and I'm forming what is like I'm calling it a paintball club, Blue Ridge Paintball Club. And what this does.
Oh, you're already doing this. You're already working on what you've been talking about.
Yeah, so this is official. So so what my idea is saying like, so this is just a small token of like innovators of the industry. Not that this is truly innovative, but as a post-collegiate athlete, if I want to play soccer, I can Google right now men's soccer league. I can find when they play. I can pay my registration fee, and I can show up and play. It really doesn't happen in paintball. And what's really funny, I think, in paintball too, and it's happened in different areas around the country. At my age, like I'll get these things, and I'm not knocking it, but it's like family, so you can kind of joke about family, right? But like in paintball, it's like, come try out for this D5 team. And I'm like, dude, the age that I am, I'm not personally aspiring to be a professional.
Yeah.
I'm giving you my money. Like, I'm not here to try out, but I do want to play, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm working on the model of like, who is that person over the age of 18 that might, I don't know where this goes to, and maybe it develops into higher level teams. But right now, I'm trying to create a format that you don't need to know me. You don't need to know somebody at the field. You just need to Google Paintball Club, find Blue Ridge Paintball Club. You live in Georgia. Yeah. And we have an agreement, working closely again with like Mario and Nitro Paintball on how this looks. And you register and play. And another thing too, with paintball, for the more that kind of in between, more than rec but not aspiring to be pro, there's never a start and stop. Like if I sign up for a paintball team, like we're just assume we're playing paintball every weekend for the rest of the year, and like that doesn't fly with a family. Like I need to tell my wife, like, here's the schedule. These Saturdays, I'm going to go and do this. There needs to be a start time and a stop time, and I need to plan my budget. Right? How much am I done? I need to pay up front and understand. So that's my small way right now of what I can control and understanding how club sports work. And say, okay, how do I apply that, and how can I start to build something really small? I mean, this is really small, but in 2021, we'll take registration this fall, and we'll start in February, and we'll go from February to May, and be done before Memorial Day for that session. So you sign up, you play, we build community, and it's just a way that I can have that. But that going back, the umbrella of this conversation is innovators in the industry, and my call to if there's people listening to this and wanting to find a way, just like start to rethink equipment. Like if you're a young man or woman and you're in college and you like engineering, like does a paintball tank need to be shaped like a paintball tank? Yeah, we've just been using a scuba tank from day one, but is that ergonomically the best thing for our shoulder? Can you now the carbon tank? Can you form something? We could send commercial rockets to the moon right now. Do we even need air to shoot a paintball? I don't know. I have no clue.
Hey, so I've got something funny to that real quick. My dad took this to his grave. God rest his soul. Love my dad to death. But he always told me, because his cousin worked for NASA. He was an engineer for NASA. Richard was his name. And I remember my dad, again, he took this argument to his grave. I said, Dad, there's no way. We'd be billionaires or multimillionaires if this is the case. But he told him about paintball, and Richard's like, we could completely eliminate that tank you have on the back of the gun. We could put a very small little something in the gun that just produced enough. And I was like, Dad, to this day, I'm like, nah, Dad, he was just smoking mirrors to you. He might have been a genius in his field, but you can't just make a paintball shoot. But no, you're right, dude. And my only point is, like, literally a NASA engineer, my dad's cousin, same thing, said, yeah, that tank on the end is completely unnecessary. Like, we have technology to make that ball shoot if we want it to. Now, the cost and the price would elevate exponentially until that technology is more readily available, of course. But yeah, I hear you, dude, 100%. So engineers, you have a job to do.
We need you.
Yeah.
Right. People that want to be in event production, and if you're in, or Or, if you're in hospitality, right? Think about running paintball events from a hospitality point of view. Like, we just need more innovators in industry to just challenge the way things are done, and not just within a certain aspect, right? So that's across equipment, that's across the infrastructure of how people participate, it's across field ownership. There's a challenge to innovate within the industry is, again, a big point of just what I see having to happen to build that bottom of pyramid.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to be creative. We got to stay fresh and new and keep innovating.
Yeah. So I'll wrap it up with that. And I hate, honestly, I feel totally bummed to wrap it up with this point, because this point,
hold on.
my last point.
You're going to wrap that up, and then we have a few questions for you. But, yeah.
So this last point I want to tell you guys, like, this is not a popular concept, and I get it, and I like the conversation.
Oh, we talked about this yesterday, I bet.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
So I think when we talk about the commercialization of the sport, and again, these are all points about creating sustainable participation. I think there's two words that we do need to be at least mindful of, or we need to have the discussion about eliminating. And that's just the word die and kill. And
that's right.
And Marcelo, you made a good point yesterday. We started to get on this topic. I have this topic passionately, like with Cena and other friends in the industry. I feel strongly about this for a couple reasons. And I'll give you those reasons, and please, you guys rebuttal and tell me where I'm off here. This
is actually a very important part of the conversation. So I want this to be highlighted, because truly, this is a good discussion to have, because we've been on, like, what's the right way for a long time.
Right.
Well, just so you guys know, in any conversation that I have, I never use those words, because I don't feel that it's the right way, the right light to be giving paintball. You know what I mean?
And just those two words particularly, and I'm not trying to tame paintball or change it or put it in a box to sell it or change. I'm not saying that, but I do think in the current environment and the social differences from when paintball started and the tragedies that we have seen at the school level, particularly, with guns, real guns, right?
Absolutely.
There's just a social mindfulness I think we need to be considerate of as we're inviting youth into our sport, right? And so particularly with those two words, there's two reasons why. One, in our sport, those words and the argument instantly is, well, it's used in video games. And, I did a lot of esport work for what brand I worked with. And I can tell you, esports is larger than the music and film industry combined. It is a massive industry, and they use those words. But there's a difference in that in paintball, those words usually follow an athlete's name, right? So it's Marcel kills out the back right? Yeah. Or Harmon dies out of, the snake or something like that. And so you're taking a very literal and actual athlete, and you're putting that action with that person. Different than, TG Gunner 44, on a screen, right? And so when you're taking an athlete's name,
real quick, is it kind of so like Ninja is a very popular esports player? Like, wouldn't you say Ninja gets another kill or Ninja dies out of this game? I don't know, actually. I don't know much about esports. I just know
it's different when they have so much money.
It is different when you have so much money. But again, I think these nicknames, I think it makes it a little bit more figurative, right?
Okay.
And then that's kind of rolls into this other point in like the aggression of it, and I love, like, Maddie's real passionate about, talking about the aggression of the sport and maybe calling it a marker instead of a gun. I don't even fight those battles or really have that point, because it is literally a gun. But those two words, you don't literally do that, right? Like, you are literally shooting. You're shooting a paintball, so that's a literal word. That is happening. Yeah. You do have a paintball gun in your hand or a paintball marker, but you're not killing that person, right, or that athlete, and they are not dying. They are simply they have lost that competitive, engagement, and they're coming right back, right? So because of that, and then last, so I think it's more personable because we're adding athletes' names. I think that it's the only part that's like more figurative and it's not literally happening, so we could easily take it out. And then the last piece is we think about going back to that point about the non-endemic sponsors. Like, if we want to sell this game to other brands, I'm not saying that we polish it up and sell them something they want, right? It still needs to be paintball. But a lot of times what you're selling is a sound clip, right? And a highlight. We see that some of the highest engaged videos, right? They're at that like 30, 45-second range. If we're just taking out sound bites and not providing the context around it, Coca-Cola would have a hell of a time marketing a sound clip that says Harmon kills out player XYZ. And if you never played paintball and you don't know the dialogue there and the context around what happened, and you heard drink Coca-Cola, Tyler Harmon drinks it and he kills out this guy. Like, you're like, wait a minute. I just heard a sports analysis soundbite of like, he dies, and then we want to pair that with a product. In the context of everybody is savvy in paintball, and we all know the lingo and the dialogue. Those words, they don't hit as hard. But if you're taking out these sound bites and you're not providing the context around it, they're too polarizing. It's like, okay, is it detrimental? I don't know. But guess what? Do without it, and it's easier.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just take it out. You don't even have to fight that battle.
You've just within less than 24 hours, you completely shifted my view on that. Because we talked about this yesterday. Dave and I were on the phone yesterday talking about it today, and I had to stop the conversation. I said, dude, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. But my rebuttal to that was, I see both sides, first of all. I'm someone, when I speak to people about paintball guns, I say paintball guns. And on the field, I say kill one, kill two out of whatever location that it comes from. And I've always actually been a fan of showing the brutalism of the sport, but in a classy way. And so my discussion with you was, the NRA is one of the biggest organizations in the world, right? There's a lot of people that support all of that rhetoric. There's a lot of people that understand it's not in its intention of killing or dying. And then you look at video games, which are the most successful brand, company, organization. Recently, video game players, they're making multi-millions of dollars. It's exploding. And it's all based around Call of Duty and PUBG, these games where you are killing, and it is a kill, death, war simulation in its like almost purest form. It's in a controller, but it's what you're doing. But you're right. You made a good point about the fact that these are almost like fictional characters that you're playing with. They're not based around real people that are real athletes, that have real entities in real. It's a video game. And so as much as you want to say, yeah, it's a video game simulating real life, it's still a video game. And it is still fantasy.
And you're 100%. And I don't want you to lose that thought. I want you to take that thought and then run with it. Think about how the internet's treated. People do a lot of weird things on the internet that they're not going to do in their real life.
Absolutely.
Right? And so we've learned to have that like filter, like, oh, once it's digital, it's just not real.
Absolutely. And so another thing that you said that really, so again, you've almost made me do a 180 on this, because when we talked, my stance was that, no, let's own what we do, right? Like what we do, we shoot these paintball guns, and it is kind of violent at times. It's safe, but it's still violent. It's an aggressive thing. And, for so long, I felt like we dance around too much trying to, it's a marker, not a gun. And so we not only not appease to the people that are going to already hate on it because it's a paintball gun. So we don't appease to them because even though we're trying to, we try to say it's a marker, but the parents still say you're shooting something. So we don't appease to them, but now we also don't appease to the group that is savage and want to authentic, and we don't appease to them either because we're dancing around it. So I've for a long time been of the mindset of, no, it's a paintball gun. It's not a real gun. It's not shooting bullets. It's not going to kill you. We call it death, but it's like video games. You call it a death. It's not a real death. It's just how we portray what we do, and there's nothing wrong with it. And there's so many good things from our sport, and that's been my argument. But now, my goodness, I actually had a little bit of a head shift there of, one, the video game world is fantasy, and a lot of other stuff is fantasy, and there's a very important comparison there. But also, I think the biggest thing that you kind of are shifting my head on is the sound bites, right? Which is what marketing is now. It's all 30-second sound bites, 1 minute sound bites. How can a company like Nike, New Balance, Under Armour, these top of the line athletic companies, how could they promote something on their Instagram that is, oh, Tyler Harmon kills Marcelo Margot, shoots him in the face, or that was an early death from Marcelo. No, like, yeah, holy shit.
Right.
That
If you're
doesn't
only
work.
getting that 30 seconds and that's
Yeah.
foreign to you,
Yeah.
you're not going to absorb that.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to think about. And then too, you made such a good point, like not softening this thing and buttering up and saying, making it something that we're not. It is an aggressive sport. I mean, that's the beauty of it. And it's all these things. All that is literal. It is happening. Those two words, again, I think are the most already probably offensive to the largest audience, and they're not even literally happening in the game.
That's
so
right.
It's like you don't even. So say you take it out, you omit it. What's the worst? I think there is an opportunity cost if you continue with that vocabulary to bear. If you go away from that vocabulary or you drop that particular vocabulary. What's the cost there? I don't know what that is.
Right.
But I think you're leaving too many dollars on the table by just being closed-minded. And I'm not saying it's my way, but I do think there needs to be a conversation around this nationally.
The argument is that you're leaving dollars on the table by not owning it as that savage, it is kind of a gun. It is like we're hunting people. Yeah. And so that is the argument. I don't know necessarily what side I totally fall on. All I do know is you just turned my head completely and made me understand that side a little bit.
So then what verbiage do we use?
It's tough. There's a lot of
have a what I told friends at Go Sports, my suggestion, have a focus group.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the best way, right? Have a focus group. First, do one poll the top 20 pro players.
No, Dave. To be fair, you need outside.
And then that's the other. Exactly. And then honestly, go to a third-party group that just does non-biased surveys, and you go to a focus group. You can either host it yourself or just get a third party where all variables are taken out, and you put these words in front of 50 people, right? And there's people that are paying and they're in consumer focus groups all the time. That's it's like a part-time side job, and they'll tell you, oh, this is offensive, this makes sense, this doesn't, and then you get that data back, and then you make up that word. But by no means am I suggesting we change the aggression. We don't sell the aggression. I mean, sell the aggression, 100%.
Yeah.
I've actually very particular just about those two words.
Yeah, I've actually, I've always had an idea in my head of paintball players wearing tank tops and shorts and, heightening the hit. And when you get hit, you really see, whoa, that guy, left a mark there. And there's it's kind of like a UFC aspect almost to it there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's cool. I didn't even thought about that. Yeah. Like instantly you're seeing the reaction from the athlete. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. That's and then cool. You're like, whoa. And then it really draws you in like, wow, that looks like it hurt, Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because it does hurt. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Paintball is, you get up close and you start getting pelted. These things are stinging, 100%.
Yeah. That's like a selling point. Like we love that. Again, my suggestion isn't to soften the sport, but it's to have the conversation around.
Agreed.
By using it, are we opening it are we giving ourselves the opportunity to speak to the widest audience?
Totally.
And I think we're losing some of that opportunity.
Yeah,
Dave,
I agree with you on that.
What do you think professional players can do to bring more attention to the sport? That's an important piece too, right? How pros manage themselves and act.
Yeah. I mean, it is, and it's getting out there, and it's it's tough right now. I mean, it's finding different medias and outlets. Clearly, like what you guys are doing. I mean, content creation is probably the easiest, right, with the lowest amount of cost or barrier. So engagement, I think too for a lot of these guys is like setting your intent as well as an athlete. Like, honestly, if your intent is to just be a great paintball player and not, like, this doesn't interest you, honestly, don't get caught in the weeds or don't get caught in the media. Just don't. If that's your intent, because what you don't want to do is kind of fall in that middle zone of like having the responsibility of saying, okay, I'm a professional at the top level, and there's eyes on me. I'm an influencer, but I'm not maybe going to handle myself the best way. Then just honestly probably stay out, right? But if your intent is like what you just asked of like, how do we give back? Then it is to set some intent and say, okay, is my intent to be, what do I want to be known for? What's my, impact to the game? What's my sphere of influence? How can I? And then so start mapping that out. And I think for a lot of people, it's grassroots. That's the beauty of it. That's what it is for so much. It's creating the experience for average Joe that then they can live with. So it's kind of a roundabout answer, but it's a roundabout process.
Well, okay,
for real.
I'm going to lead that into one more question, actually, because the question that I get a lot, and I know Tyler does too, is how can I get sponsored in paintball? And I actually hate that question because it often comes from a place that is, you're not even ready to be sponsored as an athlete. And I always tell them, do the work first. You need to become marketable first and foremost. But from somebody that has spent most of their career in sports marketing and you look for athletes that are marketable, what makes a player marketable?
Oh, their engagement. Accomplishments. To market an athlete just on accomplishments alone, they have to be like that 1%.
That's right.
And then after that, I'm talking like the 1%. Like let's say in basketball, LeBron, like that's clearly a 1%er. He also does a lot of great things off the course. Is kind of a bad example, right? But for everybody else, is it the right brand fit, right? And does that person speak on behalf of the brand? Like, that's another thing I see a lot of times in paintball, and I look at this. I'm so mindful. I look at because it's what I'm paid for. But I look at athletes. And I look at the brands that they're wearing, and I'll see through social media a lot of times players that have association with teams, with semi-pro or pro teams that have association with brands, and they are not a great brand advocate for them. And I scratch my head, or they're wearing competitor product. Like that is, if you're an athlete right now and you have any sort of agreement with the team or with a brand, and whether that is like discounting, and even if a brand's not giving you free product, but you have you have a club discount with the team, like that brand has decided to make less margin by selling to you so that they can have a partnership with you, and with the expectation that you're going to buy more of their product, so they can afford to sell it for less to you at a lower margin. But you're going to get more things from that brand. So support that brand. And then tell that brand story. Be a brand advocate. But the personality of is it a brand fit? That is number one. I'll tell you the first thing, like Red Bull is a great example. And what I was able to learn there, I think was better than any college degree, honestly, because is some of the world's leading sports marketers. But the first question for every athlete, no matter how good the athlete is, do they drink Red Bull?
Yeah.
If they don't drink Red Bull, they're not a fit. You don't even stop the conversation right there, right? And so how is that applicable in paintball? Okay, so you have the skills. There's a lot of people that have the skills. There's very few people that are the 1% that are going to get a sponsorship because of their skill alone. So don't even think about that. Think of everybody else. Okay, is your personality right? Are you willing to speak on behalf of the brand? Are you really have that responsibility? What does partnership look like? Have that dialogue. Those are all these world. There's not so much boxes as it's more fluid.
Totally.
If that makes sense.
Totally, man. Yeah, if you're gonna get sponsored, first of all, you got to be pretty damn good at paintball. That's number one. You gotta be something that when you step on the field, you're getting eliminations, you're helping your team out, and then you can boost yourself and then be able to be something like Marcelo said that a brand wants to work with.
Right, and there's also a step before sponsorship, right? If you're needing that to keep your involvement in the sport going, it kind of goes back to innovators of industry. Like, think about your value. and how can you be of value, right? So if you're maybe not getting a sponsorship, but financially it's hard for you, go to Paintball Company XYZ, email them, say, or the field or whoever that is,
Yeah.
and tell your story. Say, look, what
There
I
you
can
go.
do for you is I have 15 guys, and these 15 guys play 30 times a year, and I think we spend about $4,200 a year. We would like to spend that $4,200 with you. Could you help us with maybe some kickback or rebate? And we're going to make sure that we spend all of our $4,200 with you. In return, we're going to get the best value for that. And then have some loyalty there with that. And now you have a partnership where your cost savings come down. The brand can afford to do that because their volume has gone up.
Yeah.
So there's stages. There's not pay everything out of pocket and then you get the call up for sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
There's even at the regional level, like brands are more accessible than ever.
Yeah.
DM, direct message them.
Totally.
That's right.
And get a hold of them and just talk to them, and they want to work with people. So that would be my suggestion. Maybe I think it's probably for a later date, but you talk about sponsorship, and I have a whole nother thought process of that. I think it's really interesting. Someday I want to talk to you guys about it, that sponsorships are with teams and not athletes. And I don't have an answer for this, dude, but I think about this so much that if like Marcelo or Tyler, like if you guys have a Field One sponsorship and your contract gets traded to another team, you should take your sponsorship dollars commitment and that product onto the other team. Like you mentioned, like, Kawhi or whomever, any athlete in any pro, they're going to, regardless of the team they're on, if that brand has an agreement with that pro league that they can use that brand in that league, the sponsorship's with the athlete. Like if I'm the brand and I'm paying, I want people to associate that athlete. Now, again, paintball is a little different in the way in which teams needed funding to compete in tournaments.
Right.
It organically built this model of saying, oh, our entire team are going to shoot, gun supplier XYZ. And that helped those teams get to tournaments. Are we at that point? I don't think we are yet, but I think there is a whole nother world of discussion of thinking, when is it now need to financially benefit the athlete, right? And on a pro team, say you have 10 guys on a roster, should everybody be getting the same sponsorship package? They're not all on the same quality of play,
Right.
That's a whole nother discussion, though.
Totally.
And I think the topic of our discussion, which has been so fun, was about building the base and giving some parameters for sustainable growth and building the base of the pyramid. Yeah. That sponsorship conversation, I think, is more of the top pyramid stuff, which is two different topics, and I don't want to cross them over because they're different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right, man. It is.
Yeah, we could have a whole nother episode about top level if you want. But for now, so as far as that grassroots thing, again, what can we do once this show is over? What can we do moving forward to really start to solidify that experience and to start putting plans in motion to make all the things that we talked about kind of come to fruition?
I think it's crafting the experience level, right? So for me right now, it's building this platform of this Blue Ridge Paintball Club, right? And so I can craft the experience of trying to get people to register to play and to create some sustainability. For other people, it might be, what if you right now you have So how do you control your local level?
Sorry, Dave, real quick. Blue Ridge Pay, so you're already doing this. You're already in motion.
Yes, but I will say so I own the entity, and I spend a lot of time really thinking about the process of, what does registration look like, and what's the price, and what are you getting for that, and working with the team registration development software and all that. So that would be we'll open that up to registration here this fall in the start dates in February, right? So that's my sphere of influence of what I can do. And then for others, how do you control right now the experience within your community that you can control? Maybe one example that comes to mind is if you live in an area that says you have 3 fields, and maybe one field is a little bit nicer, they do things a certain way, or they have a vision to build it, but they might be $5 more on their paint. Call up that field owner and be like, I love what you're doing. Your paint's more. What's your end goal here, right? Maybe right now, and this is so hard to do, but if you're interested in taking on some responsibility, maybe right now the most cost-effective way of where you're spending your money is not the best way for paintball growth. So if you live in an area, you have 3 fields. One field's known as the cheapest. Another field is really aspiring to do something great. Have a conversation with that field that's trying to do something great and find out why it's more. Maybe work out a deal to where, hey, if I come this many times a year or if I pay up front, can it be less? Figure that out and then start supporting that field. Because every time you spend money, you're voting, right? You're saying not this, but this. So those dollars go and you don't want to, it's crummy, right? You don't want to vote against a paintball field, but you gotta say no to some things, and some things have to drop for other things to progress and go. So you ask what can be done? Think about how you're spending your money locally, because your money is your vote, and how can you create an atmosphere that brings in more people?
Yeah, that's something that we want to work on heavily, is creating a user experience to where even if Tyler and I put together some kind of video, every field does a safety speech, right? How cool would it be to have a safety speech video from Tyler and myself, 2 pros?
Absolutely.
Say, hey, have fun, enjoy the day. Just something so simple like that, I think could go a very long way to new users. It is great for the field to have some sort of professional credibility. 2, it grabs those players that, like you said, Dave, it's 2 separate stages. They have to come in, you have to get them in the doors first. And then after that, you have the branding that hooks them. That branding would kind of be along the lines, shout out to LaCroix right there. I see you're but it would be, then you have the second stage where it hooks them to, oh, whoa, there's professionalism in the sport. There's this, they get to see that. So
100%.
Yeah, man, totally.
100%. I think you're spot on. And again, this is the conversation of the grassroots. We got to keep going back to that point that it's not just one thing, right? I mean, what Cena and the entire team at Go Sports is doing it's Monday nights tonight, Monday night paintball tonight. We all got our phones. We're gonna watch some paintball later tonight. Before we go to bed. There's all these different things. And I'll just kind of be, keep beating the drum here. Where I'm trying to bring my skill set, and where I see an area of focus that is getting overlooked is that grassroots, that experience, and that's where I'm trying to put collective energy. But it is all these other pieces too. It's Maddie telling stories and building that up. It's you guys as athletes raising the bar of what a paintball athlete is. Definitively. So there's all these amazing pieces to it.
Totally.
And so then kind of like innovators of industry, if anybody's listening to this and they want to get more involved with paintball, don't think you have to organically be working in the paintball industry or own a paintball team to be in paintball. What skills do you have? Skills or resource that you have that you can contribute. You own a local plumbing company. Well, how many families are going to these fields? Maybe you don't have a big budget, but maybe you put a little bit of that budget towards these fields, and now you're marketing to that database. Just thinking about keeping it small, keeping it within your community, and keeping those dollars, those votes, those monetary votes, mindful.
This is my last question. I'm sure Tyler might have one or two, but and I kind of think I know your answer to this, but someone who has worked so closely with these top level brands that are, outside of the paintball industry, do you think that paintball as a sport could make it to the mainstream someday?
You kind of had this conversation with Maddie. I know, how do we define mainstream? I would say it is there. I would say, and as we talked about lacrosse a lot tonight, right? I'd say it's more mainstream. More households in America have played paintball than lacrosse, for sure, I would say. Right? So it's mainstream. Maybe the question is, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, does a global sports brand pick up paintball? As a direct market base?
You know,
Yeah.
so actually that's not quite my question, even though I get that
Okay.
that would be huge, right? But because I think there's ways paintball could make it. So I guess the better question is, could it become something where athletes are making big time contracts, right? Because
Yeah.
I think you could do that
Yeah.
without the global companies coming in. I think you could do it without
Yeah.
certain things, but
I agree. I agree. And they can make big time money. It's not going to be equal money throughout the whole team because a budget
right,
quickly dissolves when you have to divide that between 7 guys,
right,
which everybody on that team of 7, 8, or 10 players, they're really great, clearly, because they're one of few pro players, but they're not all marketable,
right,
right? And so a brand needs to spend the dollars that they have on who is marketable.
Yep.
So for those that are there, 100% the dollars will be there. And because a brand is going to get an athlete and they're going to be able to start paying that athlete more money, not based just on their performance, but let's go way back to the conversation when I was talking about how does a paintball brand now work with a field? Okay, if I'm, paintball brand X and I sign a legitimate contract with you, in that contract, I'm going to write appearance days. So not only do you have an obligation to use my product, you're going to have a social media obligation to have X amount of posts throughout the year. You're also going to have an obligation to be at the brand's disposal, dates we agree upon, so many times a year.
yes,
So now as that brand, I'm working those contracts with the fields and saying, hey, we want you to be a brand X partnership field. With that, I'm going to send one of my pros to you 2 times a year at no cost to your field, which is going to bring a ton of kids. You're going to do a clinic, and it's a free 8 hours of that athlete's time. Now, that brand then monetizes that athlete's appearance because they use that athlete's appearance to plan a booking order with that field and say, oh, before that athlete comes, stock up and have 50 goggles at the field.
yeah,
So they monetize the whole thing, and it completely works. Now, to write a check and just say, hey, kid, go play paintball, we'll see you next year, no brand is doing that now.
Right.
No
Yeah.
sport and no brand is doing that now.
right,
Every athlete is working for a brand outside of their pitch, outside of their
totally,
field, court,
yep,
whatever.
absolutely.
It's a full-time gig. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. It's multi-layered. Absolutely.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But yes, the end, can it and will it? Yeah, 100%.
So, Marcelo, what does mainstream mean to you for paintball?
Mainstream just means to me that I could tell my friends, hey, I have a event this weekend, and they are maybe aware of it. They maybe understand what I'm doing. I can support my family, my kids. I don't have kids yet, but one day, I'm sure that's the goal. I'm financially stable through the career that I've chosen. Mainstream to me is, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily on primetime news channel like Sunday Night Football. Nothing like that. No, it's just that it is something that the majority of people understand. When I'm on an airplane and I'm telling the person next to me in first class that I'm going to France to play a paintball tournament, they're not saying, what is that?
Yeah.
Right.
Mainstream is just the awareness of understanding and,
Right. Social consciousness.
social consciousness. Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
And
so I think that's a great example. Like, that's comparative. Like, surfing is one of the largest sports in the world, right? But I would say 10 out of 10 people know what surfing is. Maybe 1 out of 10 know a stop on the WSL. Maybe 1 out of 10.
Good point.
They don't know the events and stuff.
Very good point.
And so there's different ways.
Is that
and
that's
I'll
a
tell you,
participation sport?
well, actually no,
Okay.
because
Okay.
surfing is
Oh, wait.
a lifestyle influencer sport.
Cheap.
Because surfing influences, like, everybody. That's a whole nother conversation. But surfing is a sport. There's so much money in surfing because people want to aspire to the aesthetic. Like, people have never surfed before. At some point,
Right,
10, 20,
right.
30 years ago, started wearing Quicksilver and Rip Curl and all these brands. And
Totally.
now that then transcended the sport and became lifestyle, which is then a whole nother.
Gotcha.
Like, surfing
Yeah,
athletes are some of the highest paid, actually sponsored athletes globally,
Wow.
because of their influence, not in the endemic sport world, because of their influence in the non-endemic sports world. They're like lifestyle look.
Dude,
So
yeah,
that
wow.
sells a whole
Makes
different.
total sense.
Yeah, it sells a whole different way. But to the social consciousness of it, yes, I definitely believe. I think some of these points that we talked about tonight, I do think probably need to happen. I think if it stays exactly the parameters and the experience stays exactly the way it is, it's not going anywhere by any means. But does it reach its full potential, right? I mean, but that you can say that about anything. You know, I mean, like as humans, like you can choose, to live a certain lifestyle, or you don't reach its full potential. And that, man,
Totally.
your mouth starts to water, and you're like,
Totally.
oh, I want more. And that's like, I think where we're at right now. We're at the start of the tipping point for paintball. We're like, okay, we withstood the storms. We saw it get super commercial, TV. I think there's now this generation. I think a lot of, men and women my age particularly, we've seen it do what it can do. And all that happened just by natural market forces. Now, this generation kind of grew up with it. We're a little bit more mature. We have a little bit more resources. We're old enough to have some more influence. How about we now don't let the market dictate it? Now let's start to control this thing and put it to where we want it to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Wow. Amazing. Dude. The thought processing and all the info is profound, man. It's a lot to digest. It's because there's so many layers to this thing.
There is a lot of layers, and it's like setting your intent and writing it. Like a lot of this stuff I write down a lot because I think about it, over and over.
Yeah.
And it can't be like we can't do it all tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? So Marcelo, you're asking a great question. Like, well, what do we do tomorrow? Because it has to start that way. For myself, that's where I thought like this stuff is like eating me up inside. So I was like, what can I do tomorrow? I have to start this organization because then for those, in Atlanta and North Georgia, I can start to create an experience for those folks,
Yeah, that's always been one of my dreams actually, is to have like local youth programs for paintball, like how you have youth soccer programs or youth baseball, like having a youth paintball program where you supply them their paintball gun and their jersey and their shirt, and then you get the team together and you have like these local youth paintball programs and nurture the game that way and like start to build youth programs all over the country.
Why not? Let's do that, right?
Let's do that immediately.
That's something that can be controlled, right? Somebody out there somewhere, a field owner or a non-field owner. Like I'm not a field owner. Maybe someday that's in my future, but I'm not a field owner now, right? So that's me working with my local field and saying, look, I have this idea. I mean, this started back in, February, pre-COVID. I know I put a deck together, and I went to my local field and I put a pitch deck together. And I said, look, I have this like idea. Tell me if it's crazy, it's not going to work, but like I have this vision of like how we can start getting some registration. I want to work with you on this, right? And then that's it. It's so small.
I love that. I love that
but
so
it's
much.
Something.
It's something, and the initiative, and like you said, the intent. You have your intention is set, and you know where you're headed with this. And also, I really like what you said about writing things down, man. You've got to write things down if you're going to be able to manifest it into reality. You've got to be able to look at it and recreate what your vision is and the intent, and be able to keep formulating new ideas and just keep cracking away at it slowly.
100%.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Amazing. I love it, dude. Love all of it. It's really profound stuff.
I mean, hopefully you like the hope here is now it creates more conversation, right?
For sure. That's right.
And some of the stuff gets disproved, and some of the stuff maybe grows into something else or an offshoot or something none of us have thought about. But getting the conversation off the tracks that it's usually on, and when we talk about growth, and putting on some maybe other tracks of the opposite direction or rethinking it, that's the hope. So
totally.
Yeah, I mean, I took some amazing nuggets from this, and I know moving forward, I guarantee you, Tyler and I, we're both going to be in contact with you to make sure we can get some of this stuff really off the ground. Awesome to know that you have already started with starting an organization to facilitate some of this stuff. So we want to help nurture that and push that to the fullest. And
dude, please let us know.
Yeah,
like you get a website,
whatever you do.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah. I gotta call Rusty up, right?
There you go. Hey, Rusty,
I'm waiting on that part. You gotta support your network too. And it matters. Again, financially, like everybody in the paintball community, just think about where those dollars are going.
Yeah,
and support those. Totally. Support this. The platform you guys are doing. But exactly. And right now, like if this is interesting to anybody out there, or young men and women thinking about sports marketing, if I could help in any way, info, like just info at br-paintball.com. So info at br-paintball.com. That's my email for that club, but I get it and everything now. And that, that's one way to find me on social media or whatever. And again, I'm just at the point where I feel obligated to start to give back. I mean, it's an obligation. So, call me out, find a way, like hold me to it. I have a responsibility to the sport community, and super humbled to talk to you guys about it.
Dude, we love you so much, Dave. And it's like, this game has given us so much, beautiful things that we've, like how Matty always says, the gifts of the game. It's given us so much. And that's why we created this. That's why we love talking to you, because it's time for us to create the best reality for paintball and come together and do whatever we can, man.
I love it, man. I think, and that's for all of us that are experiencing it. I think there's a lot of young and older men and women that, their life is stressful, and
totally
people need, they need to find some place, and paintball is not the place for everybody, but I think there's a lot of people out there that could find a home within this community that it could just help them with a lot,
for sure,
mentally and physically. And so let's create that opportunity for more people to find a home.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, let's all,
cool.
The paintball tribe, man, let's make it strong.
I love
Absolutely.
it. Dave,
that's right.
Look, man, one, we're definitely going to have you back on, because I could tell there's so many great things we could talk about. You're just such an intelligent dude with the right ideas for the sport of paintball. Again, we are so thankful, and we're excited to help assist in this journey. We're going to stay in touch. I know that for sure. As soon as we get off the air, I'm probably going to hit you up and ask what we can do to start putting some of these plans in motion. But we can't thank you enough, Dave, for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel honored. I'm stoked. And I said it in the beginning, and to wrap it up, like, from the paintball community, we needed this, the platform you guys right now, particularly, with all the funky season that we're in. So we needed it. Yeah. You guys stepped up. Look, you answered the bell, right? Dude. And you stepped into it. So you guys are a great example on and off the field. So thank you,
Dave. And normally, for all the listeners, he charges about $1,000 an hour for this kind of stuff. So, let's really take value to this and put it into action. And Dave, dude, thank you so much for everything that you've done. I mean, for me personally, for the teams that I've played for the paintball community, and just being a rad dude in the industry. And let's keep playing the game and keep nurturing it, man.
Yeah, baby.
Play the game.
Yeah, baby.
The game. I love it. All right, fellas.
Let's go. All right, brother.
Peace.
We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Later, bro. Yes, sir. Bye. Wow, man. What an amazing guy Dave is. Super honored and humbled, truly, to have him on the show. My outlook on how I can help paintball grow has changed dramatically after listening to that. And I think it's going to have a profound effect on paintball and the way that we move it forward. I hope that people out there really take heed to this message, and if we can, let's start initiatives to get these things going. Really, really, very, very honored to have Dave on the show. Thank you so much for coming on, bud. And thank you all for listening. Thank you for supporting Play the Game podcast. We can't do this without you. You guys are everything to us, and we're having such a great time putting on this show. So thank you. If you want to support the show, head on over to ptgpodcast.com and you can become a supporter there. We have all of the podcasts up there, all of the YouTube shows. We also have information on our partners and all the amazing things that they're doing. And we also have the PTG store. You can head over there and get some merchandise, maybe a hat or a shirt. We have some fun stuff like swag bag, backpack, and some coffee mugs, and just great things over there as well. And man, huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. If you go to ptgpodcast.com, you can go down to the bottom and become a patron of the show and chip a buck in the bucket for us. It goes a long way and helps us tremendously in giving you guys the best quality show that we can, and we absolutely love you for that. You will also be getting exclusive content on that Patreon site if you become a patron of the show, and we give you a 20% discount on the store for ptgpodcast.com. If you become a patron, you also get a 20% discount if you go to the PTG store. Also, on our personal Instagram for Marcelo and myself, we're always selling stuff, and we'll also give you the 20% discount on that if you're a patron as well. Huge shout out to you guys out there for supporting us. This website was built by Constant Pursuit. Huge shout out to Rusty Glaze. He's doing amazing things in that space, building the best websites imaginable for paintball fields and stores. So if you are a paintball field or a paintball store and you want to take your presence to the next level and give your clients the best experience, call Rusty Glaze. Go to constantpursuit.com and you can get dialed in with Rusty. Our page is done by Rusty Glaze and constantpursuit.com, so you can go to ptgpodcast.com and check that out and see what he does. Just an amazing guy, and he goes above and beyond to help us, and I know he does the same for everybody he works with, so really huge supporter of him. If you have any questions, please DM us at Play the Game Podcast. And we just want to say how grateful we are to be in this space, putting on this show. And thank you, everybody who continues to support us. Have a great one, PTG fam. Let's go.